All right, we will get going here on a Friday morning. Welcome in. Going to be an important session for the market. We're wrapping up what has been an interesting week here. We're also going to get inflation print coming up in about 30 minutes. We'll bring that to you live. January CPI going to come through at 8:30 this morning. We are expecting a slight, ever so slight uptick as far as inflation goes. Very important ahead of the Fed coming up in a couple of weeks here. Here's how the overall market is setting up so far this morning. We had the nasty sell-off right out of the gate yesterday morning. We're continuing to get hit here in the pre-market. Earnings kind of mixed, really, right across the entire board. Hey, we'll just do it all over again. Why don't we?
Why not, Brendo?
Take two, I guess. I don't know. Welcome to Friday. As I was saying, market downside here ever so slightly this morning as we get going on a Friday, which is going to be very, very important for the overall market with inflation to come. We'll talk about CPI coming up, January CPI print. Obviously, coming on the back of the employment data that we got the other day, much better than expected. You and I sat here and said, what happens if CPI comes out and it's also in the right direction, downside, and we just keep getting these, great prints. But anyway, lots of earnings news to cover this morning as well.
Well, one eventuality, obviously, more pressure on the Fed to cut at that point, but we'll have to get that print before we can make that argument. Good morning, guys. There is a whole lot of earnings names to talk about. Applied Materials, blowout earnings, kind of echoing the same thing that we've been hearing about ASML, that there's a lot of buying for chip manufacturing equipment. Instacart in focus as well, Brendo. Airbnb, Pinterest, Rivian with a blow-off top there, over 20 bucks. Randy's probably quite happy. Roku as well, reporting DraftKings with a bit of a miss. And Coinbase a little stagnant here. I mean, there was some good, some bad in that report, but not really doing a whole lot. Aristia Networks, Brendo, there's a whole lot of earnings.
We were sitting here last night when this Coinbase earnings report came out, and we were all just kind of staring at each other going, why isn't it doing anything?
And more the same this morning.
We went through all the numbers, and they seemed pretty good. The initial move was down, and then we came back to basically flat. And even when we left, I think it was still basically flat. I mean, yeah, we're up nicely here this morning. But, I mean, not much to do about anything, really.
But talking about the same thing about this super cycle that they're talking about for the prediction markets. We heard it as well from Robinhood, Vlad Tenev, saying there's going to be a prediction market super cycle. He didn't use that phrase, Brian Armstrong, obviously, but they're throwing their hat into the ring as well.
But spending higher on the back of that, maybe some build out to accommodate some of that prediction market gains, hopefully, down the road. So, Coin, one of those. We'll talk about Rivian as well. I mean, you and I were just discussing this R2. I think there's a lot of excitement around this R2 and the launch of it. He came out right in the report saying Q2. People are going to be able to get their hands on R2s in Q2. Say that 3 times fast.
That's going to be tough.
But it looks really good. I mean, if they can actually make money. One thing that stood out in that report is the loss shrunk. The per unit loss shrunk again, which was 2 quarters in a row. The prior quarter was around $19,000. They were saying they were saving an additional $7,000 off of that. So heading in the right direction. Exactly.
And you got to get to profitability at some point. You can't just burn cash forever. And I think they've been given a fair runway. But I did like, as you and I were talking about, Marquez Brownlee's video where he reviews the R2. If you don't see this thing live in person, you really can't tell the size difference between the R1S and the R2. They look identical. Obviously, it doesn't have a third row. It's a little narrower. It's a little bit longer than the Model Y. Completely different shaped, obviously. It's not aerodynamic, so it doesn't have the same kind of range. But if you can get a nicely equipped R2, Brendo, with that kind of range and that kind of price, $45,000, I think that's a game changer. He's going to have to keep that price low, as we know the consumer is quite conscious now.
Yeah, I still just don't understand how are they not going to lose their shirt on those rolling out of the door at $45,000?
Exactly.
When they can't even, make money on the higher price one. So lots to learn, obviously, still for Rivian. But yeah, up nicely here. We're up to 17 bucks. Just struggling. Disregard that candle. It's a D print coming through right now. But 17 bucks coming into play. Sean is off, enjoying a nice day off on a Friday. Obi and by the way, guys, it's Friday the 13th. If anyone cares.
Welcome. I was kind of wondering when you were going to say that. Hopefully nobody cares, and hopefully it's not an ominous thing. I feel like after yesterday, what could possibly happen that was crazier than the sell-off we had yesterday? I mean, it couldn't possibly get worse.
It's definitely the week of the Friday the 13th. Let's say that. Every day coming in, I'm just like, yeah, the sellers are very, very dominant. I think there's maybe a little bit of a lack of confidence in the bid when it comes to just the market in general. We've been seeing that. And yeah, beautiful trends, all day trends. So if you are day trading some of this stuff, I think some absolutely solid amazing opportunities. And just you know, a big thing that I've been kind of journaling this week, Neil, has been stick with it. Stick with it, because I'm just like, I feel like I'm getting out a little too early on some of these, getting short, of course, and then I'm just like, this just keeps on going and going and going, and I covered maybe in the morning, and I'm looking at it at the end of the day, being like, oh boy, this is an all-day move, but you know, it is what it is.
That's how I felt.
It's a great scalpers market as well, I'd say. Just the amount of volatility in with some of these earnings names, and we're in the midst of earnings season as well. So,
and the other thing about it too is, like, as much as it's been a sell, like you say that with the earnings, there's also plenty to the upside. Like yesterday, you cover like short Bitcoin, short silver, like a bunch of stuff in the morning, BM&R, and then it's like everything. You're out, and then so many things fall through randomly. That was that crazy drop in silver that tanked the market. You can't know that that's going to happen. But on the other side of the coin, like, you still had things like, okay, obviously Pinterest is not helping the point I'm about to make, so I'm going to go to FSLY. No, you had this
that was crazy
just literally going up almost the entirety of the day. Pull back into VWAP a couple times after the opening push, and at one point was up like 90-something%. So you do have the other side of it where you're getting continuation, even some of the big earnings names. So you look to see if a Rivian can pull that off. You look to see if, my goodness, AMAT beast. The stock is a beast. We had a poll last night going into the aftermarket show, and it was like, which one of these earnings names did you want to buy? And I don't even remember what the other three were, but it was like Coin and Airbnb, and I don't remember what the third one was, and it was AMAT. I'm like, how is everybody not just choosing AMAT? Like, you have a stock which is continually going higher. Everyone in the space is blowing it out. You saw ASML do it. You saw Lamb do it. There's zero reason to believe AMAT wouldn't have had a good quarter. You don't know that they're going to go 10%. But at the same time, yeah, there's plenty of strength out there in the market if you want to find it. But I think, like you were saying, it's about continuation, right? Like, try to be with the move. Like the other day, I think it was like 2 or 3 sessions ago, was like PayPal. And I remember like shorting that one, and every single time it made a lower high. I don't know if I can find it. Let's see how many sessions ago it was here. And obviously PayPal's having a rough time as well. But you look at some of these names that are just stair-stepping it to the downside, and you ask yourself, oh yeah, it was this day. Like every single time it consolidated, there was just another chance to get in. And it would consolidate from it's just another chance to get in. And then there's a green candle on the 15-minute, you're just shorting the next candle. Like every single time you were basically just doing that and then going to prior resistance on a downward trend. And of course, this is also threatening to go lower. Yeah, so there's lots to watch, but don't get caught thinking because the market might look weak or maybe CPI doesn't turn things around, we get that number in 20 minutes, that there won't be names that are trending upside. So just make sure you understand. That's why we go through the watch list. That's why we're going to do the rundown. That's why we have the notes out so that you have an idea where to start. And there's always something strong. Heck, you can always just go long ZLS when silver goes down as well. So you can always express the trade one way or another. Lots to cover. I didn't realize we didn't get the memo that we're supposed to wear like blinding white dress shirts today, guys. Not white.
No.
Comes across.
It looks white on the screen, but yeah.
Wow, it really does.
It's a little different. What is this color, Brendo? Paisley? What do they call this?
I don't know. I got to the end of the row in my shirt closet. And
Same with me. That's
Give me that
exactly
one.
how I do it. I keep them in rotation.
Yeah.
I like it.
Whatever. Just reading a note here on Alibaba. U.S. expected to add companies, including Alibaba, to the Pentagon's list of firms allegedly aiding Chinese military.
There you go. Yeah.
As soon as today. So downside here, 2 days in a row. I mean, obviously the market was pretty hit. It was pretty ugly yesterday. Downside. So here we are, Baba under a little bit of pressure, down to 155 on that note. I mean, this is nothing new as far as the U.S.-China back and forth goes, but I mean, that's a big name if they want to start targeting those too.
Well, we know that they're in the chip making game now. They're trying to build their own chips and in conjunction with Huawei to kind of get their AI data centers up and floating. But let's be honest here. We know that there's going to be a meeting between President Trump and President Xi in April. We don't know exactly when. And there's a lot of political posturing ahead of that meeting so that you can kind of get a better negotiating hand. This could be part of it as well. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that. But Baba, very clearly has always been involved with the Chinese government, Chinese military. We know about Jack Ma and his connections with the Chinese Communist Party. Also, did you see this Baidu headline? To build on some of the things you were talking about yesterday, OpenClaw, Baidu is embedding OpenClaw AI agent directly into its flagship AI app. I think they call it Ernie. So get ready for the security breaches there.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not terrifying at all.
Not at all.
One of the other major talking points this morning might be this one. Apple, big. If you go to the daily chart, big, ugly red candle yesterday here for Apple. Worst day since April. The tariff tantrum downside move we had in the overall market. On this FTC note, I think it's worth right out of the gate just pointing out they haven't come out and said Apple did something wrong,
right?
And they're going to go after them for doing something wrong. It's very cautionary in nature, just talking about how they're communicating their spending plans and how they're communicating their strategy when it comes to AI.
Well, here's how I kind of look at AI aside, that botched, yet again issue. The FTC political bias thing, I think, is really less to do with Apple and more to do with mainstream media taking a left-leaning bias when it comes to, news. And Apple just basically gives you that, mainstream media in the flow. So I don't think it has anything to do with Apple. I think perhaps maybe they can alter their algorithms a little bit to include some more objective or other side voices. I think that is probably incumbent upon them so that they can kind of touch both sides of the market. But I feel like the content much less to do with Apple and more to do with mainstream media.
The one thing, and Sean made this point, and it was a very good point yesterday, this is the one, as far as Mag 7 goes, as far as big tech goes, that has been holding up better than most. Obviously not a software-related name, that's a whole other argument, but also I think with that down day we had in the overall market, it was just maybe some people going in saying, where can I take some gains and take some profits? Exactly. That was one that was still high.
It's high, but Brendo, I have a bigger concern here, okay, about AI in general. You and I, big users of AI. We know for a fact it's constantly hallucinating. It's constantly making mistakes. I think this is Apple saying we will not put a deficient product out there unless it is, well-tuned and polished. That is different than we see with Google. Google is willing to take the risk, put a product that is not, that is not fully polished, and the market rewards them for that, right? They're taking risk even at the expense of maybe looking a little bit, unpolished. Apple doesn't want to do that.
I mean, we saw on the CapEx spend, it's worth noting as well, what was it? 10% of, basically what everyone else was going to spend in the remainder of this year. That said, back to key levels here, guys, for Apple on a higher time frame this morning. I mean, if we get follow through, this is all going to probably depend on what happens with this number at 8:30. But if we get some follow through to the downside here today, definitely one to watch.
Oh, for sure. Like it just doesn't do this usually, right? We're even saying like on an earnings day, you'd be sometimes you're even shocked if it'll move 5 points on Apple. You got a few things going on that were part of the strength. I think the fact that they weren't doing the AI spend and insulated them from the whole bubble talk. The other thing that you've got to consider here, though, is like some of the explosive growth upside, however, might not be there as well for Apple. So it made some sense that there was a little bit of trimming. I'd be pretty concerned if we lose 260 today that you don't just fill it all the way back into somewhere 45 to the 50 area. Like that's been, pretty good and distinct price level. So if you lose 260 today, I don't want to be all like doom and gloom or anything, but like there's nothing about this morning yet going into this CPI. Like the Nasdaq is at the lows. We've been trending down literally the entirety of the pre-market here. Like there's really not been much of a bid to make us look otherwise. Yeah, you just don't want to have a flat bottom break after that wedge fall over that we just saw over here in Apple. I would be concerned if you lose this 260. You could easily see, maybe not in a single day. I don't know if it could do 5% 2 days in a row. That would be pretty extreme for Apple. But next week, we could easily see that 250 level. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because everything about Apple that made it maybe relatively strong compared to the other Mag 7, it's still there. Like I don't want to compare it to. I don't want to compare them improving Siri and actually getting something out there, which will be a big improvement. I don't want to compare it to Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. But it's the kind of thing where wow, we've been waiting for them to do it forever. Yeah. Just the fact that it seems to be soon, that should be good enough. I'm not worried about the delay thing, but you can sometimes get worried about the whole political notion and the skew. We've seen that happen before to punish the stock. I don't know how much it would punish Apple. I still think you can buy it in that 245 to 250 range. And next week, I think we could see that price.
Yeah, I think it is pulling back into some interesting levels here, Neil. And yeah, you're right. Yesterday, I was just looking at Apple, and I was just like, what is going on here? Just continues to just bleed out, just methodic selling all day long, and it was tripping up my overextension indicators all over the place. But I was like, yeah, this is something I definitely don't want to revert, especially on a day like yesterday. And it ended up closing near the low a day there. But yeah, I'm looking for potential continuation. That was aggressive selling, and if that seller or sellers are not done yet, yeah, maybe through just taking it simply through prior day's low, and we're seeing that kind of coming into the pre-market session right here, right now. But yeah, we still have about just under 15 minutes until CPI, so I think we're definitely awaiting that as well. And it kind of goes on to something that I said before, just the lack of bid, and Apple was the most overextended to the downside yesterday. So maybe just gives us an inkling of a potential market sentiment going forward here, and a bit of a false break maybe potentially of some of these highs here in those 280s. We tried a couple of times. We finally broke that down. Couldn't quite get that far. I know there's a lot of lines here, but let's go to a daily chart. And just look at the break of this trend here, Neil. So this is that bid from August. From 2025, you can see higher highs, higher lows right there. We were holding this trend quite nicely, and that puke comes in going into the end of the year. So this is technically the year high, or it was. We pull back in aggressively into a prior maybe potential support level all the way here from October, catch a bit of a bounce, and then a lower high coming right back in, a false break of yearly highs, and it's only February. So I don't know. That right here.
Only February, it hasn't been a really quick month and a half.
Just in terms of just like price action, we come back into the high.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We attempt to push, and then sellers step right back in. Not only do they step in aggressively. So is this a little bit of a key level? Yes, for sure. Are we going to continue above or below? I don't know. I don't know what it's going to do. I have no idea. But it's telling me right here off the chart that this 277 to 280 level probably going to be interesting if we do come back up there again.
And we've been seeing that pattern a lot. Things pulling back, you've got the things that are breaking out clean. You saw it with energy, pull up like a chart of XOM or CVX. You've seen it. We showed things like AMAT that are continuing to go higher, like Walmart, which continues to break out and continues to go higher. And then you throw in, Nvidia would be an example of a stock, maybe not the exact same pattern, but you're pulling into the lower high, and you're doing absolutely nothing with it, right? Over and over and over again. You just can't press. You can't press. You cannot get through it. I could even take you to something like Intel, which is similar. Presses, makes the high, lower high. That's 50 level. You just can't do anything with it. It's been gold shorting off of this 50 level. So what it's telling you is there's a couple of groups of strong names, and really, let's be real, industrial, some of the staples and energy have been the ones breaking out. You get some notable exceptions like our AMATs and RASMLs, those types of things, which are fine. But in the tech space, it's not just an Apple thing. It's across the board. You're having a bunch failing these lower highs that are pretty big. And of course, on a Friday, we have to look at some big optionable levels as well with our good friend Joe.
Absolutely, guys. Good morning and happy Friday. Friday the 13th, that's Brendo mentioned for all the superstitious individuals out there. All right, guys, let's hop right into things and take a look into the world of options. We're going to start some things off with ASTS. A big time move to the downside yesterday, guys. So what do we have to do? We have to look at some of the options activity, and we're going to go to that OPEX expiration cycle of February 20th. So that's going to be next week, guys. We're going to take a gander at that $85 strike price. Now, you can see the open interest in this name. It's not the most active in the options world, but if we're talking relatively speaking, there's an increase in activity here, guys. 5,400 contracts open and closed with 1,870 at that $85 mark. Now, you can see there's a pretty big bid and ask here, guys. We're looking at around $60 or so, a little bit more. It might tighten up after the open, right? So you want to keep an eye out on that. And considering it's a deeply in the money contract, you have a slight increase in the delta. We're sitting around 55 there. And your gamma exposure is relatively cool. Don't forget gamma greatest at its when it's at the money. And we are in the money on this contract. But your at the money IV is drastically increased, obviously due to the earnings report and the dramatic slides that we experienced yesterday. Sitting around 110% there, guys. But what we want to do is take a look at the actual contract. Now, this name hasn't been performing the best, and we talk about this time and time again, just the decay within these contracts. Now, one thing about holding these leaps, guys, and we talk about the objective of what you're looking for when you're holding these contracts. Now, intrinsic, extrinsic value, we can go on all day about these things, but when you're holding leaps, whatever it may be, the quicker your thesis works, the better, okay? Just because there's a longer duration, and speaking from experience and for those who have held longer duration contracts, the longer you move sideways and the longer the contract or the underlying moves against you, the less you're gonna be able to capture from a premium standpoint within these contracts, okay? So you can see that this 85 put was worth $2,800 at one point. And then sure enough, it slid down to $1.87. Now, if you're a buyer after the option or after earnings, then sure enough, you can see some gains. But for the individuals in the volume in here, just waiting and hoping that, hey, we need an aggressive downturn and that you're going to recuperate all of that, what you have lost due to theta. It's very difficult, and you need an outsized move, even though we did experience one here in ASTS. So keep an eye out on that, guys, there on that $85 strike price. Moving forward, let's take a look at NewScale Power here. SMR continuing its slide yesterday as well, too. A strong pop in the pre-market and then gave the majority of that back, guys. So we're sitting at that $15.50 strike price. Once again, expiring on the 20th. The bid and the ask relatively cheap, guys, $11 spread there. But open interest and volume were substantial for this name, 22,800, and then volume around 20,800 there, guys. And then once again, bid and ask relatively tight, but your delta, you're sitting at that $88 delta there, guys. For every $1 change to the downside, you're going to see an $88 increase within that options contract. The at-the-money IV increased, obviously, due to the volatility, 128.2%. Gamma exposure, relatively light, but 16.9 there, guys.
Yeah, great look, Joe. And one of those, see, the unfortunate thing when you look at the market that did what it did yesterday or has been doing what it's been doing recently, where you've had some distinct losers and very distinct winners, despite the fact that overall, if you're diversified, you're good, is names like SMR holding the line, but just barely at this 14. It's a good support level, and technically we haven't broken it yet. Right? Like, it's just underneath the $14 mark here that you get a flat bottom break into some pretty big lows. But again, it has not yet broken, but that's exactly the kind of move, especially on a Friday here. Like, if I see, use like yesterday as an example, right? Like, imagine that like here, like the 1640 is about your 14 breakdown. Like, if it busts down and we're going, it retests VWAP short. That simple. You break this low at 14 and we do a structure down, like, I'm going to want a continuation trade in SMR. I'm thinking the same things with like a Pinterest as well. Like, it's obviously their earnings was a big problem, but SMR needs to be on the radar, needs to be on the list. Oh, before we move on, by the way, Rivian has already broken 17 and is now up 24%. See, there's always something strong. You can go doom and gloom all you want. 5 minutes, we'll get CPI, but there's always something which is going ham. Rivian, I can't say that the earnings were a blowout, because if you lose money, blowouts it's just not a word I can use when a company's losing money. But there were certain metrics were important, and as we were saying last night, if these guys can figure it out, the point at which they get profitable is going to be way too late. That's just the reality. It was a marked and massive improvement in terms of how much they were losing per vehicle. That's the kind of thing that if they can sustain, people are starting to see the light around at the end of the tunnel here for Rivian. Now 25% to the upside, and that R2, it's like Sharif said, I mean, if you can keep it cheap, if they can keep the price point down, I think that'll be absolutely huge for them. And you're seeing that right here. Already another 4% in here for Rivian. There's just a lot to look at on these earnings plays.
Yeah, I think one we were discussing earlier was that ASTS, and yesterday I was talking to Neil. Great trade off of the open. The opening drive was absolutely beautiful, especially if you tried to take it through this 86 level, but it was SSR. I tried to hit that 86, did not get any fills. Chase down below 86, did not get any fills, but kind of these are the ones, again, Neil was like, yeah, sometimes you just got to take a step back and just look at where some of these levels are actually coming in. And you can see here, VWAP was the place to sell, not only off of the open, once again at 1040, 1045s, maybe once again at 945s and 950, and then once again at 1020. That's where the sellers kind of came in. So on an SSR name where you can't just hit the bid, you have to post and provide some liquidity there. VWAP was the place to come in. Let's see if that holds true once again. I saw that Joe was talking about those puts potentially coming in real nice coming into the end of the week, and you said they had some sort of an offering there coming in. Yeah, it was an offering there. So decent catalyst. Let's see if we can continue this one here with that tailwind. Market tailwind is definitely on your side, especially yesterday. We'll see if it is once again today on ASTS. But lots of names on the roster today, and stock selection is going to be a big one. And like you said before, again, you don't have to be short. If you find the bid on, like a great example was Fastly yesterday. Find something that is catching a bid and see whether that relative strength continues on throughout the day, and then get with the trend.
Well, think about it. Yesterday was probably one of the biggest days for shorts. If you were short crypto, silver, market, like Apple, like there were just monster moves. Yet nothing was a better trade than Fastly to the long side. On one of the best short days you will find of the year, and probably the #1 trading opportunity. I mean, like I didn't trade Fastly. Obviously, it was short. I was short in the morning. I was short in the afternoon, but Fastly was a stock that you could have just been only long this and doing nothing else, and there's almost no chance that you could have had a better trade. I'm sure, don't at me, I'm sure there's something that was, somewhere there was something that probably moved more. I get that, but you guys know what we mean.
VRT wasn't bad.
VRT. No, I'm just saying, if you buy this one off of VWAP,
this was the cleanest one.
It went like 20% off of VWAP from 11 o'clock to the highs. Like that's like, come on, like you just don't see that. The initial move, the gap up, certainly is usually more of the market. It said if you missed the gap up, you missed the initial move. Here, you just go have another 20% with Fastly, and that was on a down day. So there's always something out there like Rivian, which is trying to go here. But in 2 minutes, and we'll throw back to the desk, we're gonna get CPI. Just a reminder. We've seen this the last couple of sessions. You get that 830 number, the chase, whatever it does on the first move, the market's doing the first move, the chase is not always the best play. We've seen so many reversals off of whatever direction we head heavily on an 830 print. With that, we'll send you guys back to the boys and wait.
Yeah, about 90 seconds to go here. We'll set this up a little bit. That's how the S&P 500 is going to go into this. Basically flat on the session, down slightly on the pre-market here. For January, month over month, the prior was 0.2. We're looking for a 0.3% uptick over the year period. 2.5% is the number, so a little bit of a downtick. Prior was 2.6%, if you remember. Inflation rate overall, 2.7 versus 2.5. Was the consensus. So last time 2.7 consensus, looking for a downtick as well. So about a minute here, we've gotten to a point where this number has been 0.1 up, 0.1 down kind of thing, month over month over month over month. Anything's outside of that, market moves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get into the nitty-gritty as well to see exactly which categories are continuing to have higher rates of inflation, which ones are deflationary. You always see that number after, but it's been manageable lately. And as as Chair Powell said, they're monitoring the categories that were affected by tariffs, and they have data off which to work.
Yeah, all right. 15 seconds here before we get the January CPI print. Don't expect massive fireworks here as far as the market is concerned. I could be completely wrong with that, but the past few haven't been terribly exciting as far as this print is concerned. There it is, in line with expectation. 0.3% month over month, 2.5%. So bang on target, 2.5% for January CPI, exactly where they were expecting it to be. The inflation rate, however, a bit of a downtick here, 2.4% versus 2.5% expected there. So overall, a little bit of a tick higher here, guys, for the market.
Yeah, initial move to the upside. It's not crazy, but we are look, we're green. We ended up on the lows. It'll be a little bit deceiving when you look red or green today, I think, for the market, because we did end up on those lows. And I really do feel like the top end of the range from the afternoon could be a more reasonable spot to think of us as breaking out. So on the SPY, that'll be like 686 or so, just over on the Qs. Triple Q, come on, baby. There we go. That'll be like more like 605-ish. So yeah, good gap up, but I wouldn't be necessarily chasing this at all after that CPI print. Yeah, I mean, as expected, in theory, shouldn't move the needle too much. Like if the stocks that I felt bearish on or the things I feel bearish on, I'm going to kind of lean back toward that and not change anything. Looking at individual names, decent bump in NVIDIA. You look at Apple, one of the things that I like to always pay attention to is what does and doesn't react with the market. So as you see, the market bounces up, NVIDIA bounces up, AMD is now up 1.5%. I got that one up here. Well, Apple did not even budge. So there should be at least a little bit of concern over that. Like you get this nice move up in reaction to CPI, and Apple says, well, we're not doing anything. We're just going to sit exactly where we were before. So the relative weakness seems to still be in Apple as we watch the next hour. If that doesn't change, I do fear we could lose that 260 level. That's exactly what you didn't want to see with Apple. It would be nice. If it just moved with the market there, it would have been perfectly fine. It doesn't have to go crazy or anything, but not looking good for them. Continuation still seeming like it's in play.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly, Neil. The first thing when I saw that market bid, I just pulled up Apple. I was like, all right, let's see what Apple's doing. We had this consolidation range yesterday for about 3 hours. So that selling kind of started to slow off there at around 1 p.m. And since then, we had a bit of a sideways consolidation, and even going into the end of the day, a bit of a range hold there all the way down to day lows, and then pulls right back up to 262 halves there. The day lows coming in at 260.18. So we didn't quite get through 260s, but maybe that'll potentially come in as of right now. Take a look at that. That bid that just came in on the market getting slapped right back down, back into some of those opening prices of this current 15-minute candle here on both these futures. So yeah, Apple, relative weakness still kind of very, very apparent there. Didn't really see too much of a move across the board, but we'll see. We'll see. Open market price action is what I'm maybe a little bit more focused towards today. We'll see how the market reacts, and continuation is definitely on the board for me, but I don't know. I have no idea what the market is going to do, but that's the beautiful thing. Can we react? Can we act? Can we readapt, apt?
Ooh.
That's the real question.
Oh, Michael Scott. That's what it's all about. See, Obi's got the references. I know you've got the references. It's just sometimes the old ones are all me, and Sean as well, but that's a good one there. Just to go down the line of things that are moving with the market, pointing out iBit here or Bitcoin with a little bit of a bump. You're actually, you're very close to where things fell off yesterday. 38.5, that's 68, just underneath the 68,000 level. So that could be a key one. Also worth noting, I quickly showed that chart of AMD with a decent spike, but remember the earnings name of AMAT. This should be interesting. We'll go to Michael Naas in a second. It'd be interesting to hear his thoughts about what happened yesterday, because some of those pullbacks were crazy. AMAT didn't press through the highs there. So big gap up there for them on earnings, up 11%, but didn't really sustain much of the move with the market. So that could be one to watch if they start doing some profit taking here on AMAT. But we do have Michael Naas. It's a Friday, so we're always excited to get his point of view, especially after a sell-off like we had yesterday. So let's get you to the desk with Brendan and Michael.
Just seeing, guys, the Fed fund futures now pricing in a 50% chance of a third Fed rate cut coming up by the end of the year after that inflation print. Again, if you're just joining a little bit late, basically in line with expectations across the board. Month over month, 0.2, forecast was 0.3, so a little better. And then the year over year, the overall inflation rate was 10th downside as well, so a little bit better than expected. So overall, market right back to where we started.
So were you talking about the June meeting?
No, I'm
You're
just
talking about 3 cuts.
Yeah, by the end of the year. Yeah.
And now the June meeting, Brendo, there's a 50% chance on the Fed rate tool that we get that quarter point cut. That's in June. I think we were kicking the can down the road July, I think a few weeks ago, right?
I think we're going to get a very dovish Kevin Warsh coming into Powell's seat when he does take over in May. Let's bring in Michael Naas. It's Friday. We get a bit of a yawner of a CPI print here. Mr. Naas, good to see you as always. The overall theme seems to be this choppy range that we continue to bounce around in. It seems like we're right back down to the bottom end of the range here going into today after what happened yesterday. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, we've been talking about this kind of all year. Started talking about it last year that we are range bound, and again, I still expect us to be range bound. I brought back the markets in turmoil slide because I thought it was funny that last week I flashed this up, and then the next day, or Friday that I was on, I think the IWM rallied like 4% off its lows, and then we had a bullish week ever since. But this is the part of choppy markets, is that you're going to get tests to the top end of ranges. Probably you're going to get some breakthrough at the top end of ranges. Then you're going to have the same on the way back down. Again, if I'm right about it being choppy and this isn't some sort of long-term chart, this is kind of what I expect, is that both sides get very, very frustrated. And then the people who either trade relative strength, which is what we're going to talk about today, and then also people who are very good at, buying support, selling resistance, that type of thing. I really do think that that's going to be the thing that thrives. And it's not what most people are used to. Most people are used to, let me find some hot stock that's going up that has AI in it, and I'll buy it and I'll double my money. But I really do think it's going to be a buy the dip, sell the rip kind of environment, which is what people are going to need to adapt. So I just thought I'd do a simple lesson. I know I've talked about this before, about how to do this. And, this is just a heat map of everything that happened yesterday. You can see a lot of red, but still some green. I know you guys show this on the show, and there's lots of free places to get stuff like this, where you're just looking for, show me the stuff that's green. So very simply, at Stats Edge, we do a lot of like quantitative stuff. Everything I do is systematic, but I just wanted to show for people who aren't into that, just a very simple way to do this. So all I did is I sat down for about 5-10 minutes last night, and I clicked on the ones that are green, and I just went through them, and I looked at anything that was a larger cap company. These are all S&P 500 names that were green. You can find some themes usually, like if you have some of these sectors that are a theme, like we saw, healthcare doing okay, and consumer staples doing okay, and things like that. But I was more focused on the boxes that were red, but then there was names that just weren't quite red, and that's the concept of relative strength. The idea is that when everybody is selling, and we're selling because of some story or narrative or AI shift, I'm just going to look for the stuff they didn't sell, because then if the market rebounds, the idea is those things are potentially going to hold up the best. So I brought some names to you that I thought were kind of interesting here, and the first one is Boeing. And if we're selling now because everyone's worried about AI taking everything, well, I hope it's not going to be building planes by itself anytime soon. So you're not going to be able to fly to another country because you ask Claude Code to do it for you, or build a plane in your backyard. So these kind of charts are the ones that we might gravitate to. They're not going to be as interesting as an Oklo or a Big Bear AI or anything like that, but very great chart. I know me and Neil, we talk about this all the time, that this is my personal favorite setup. You have a simple zone here around 230. We broke 230, we came back to hold that level, and now it becomes a very simple trade. As long as we're holding this kind of 230, 240 area, I'm going to be in, and if we break that and we kind of close below that area, I'm wrong and I'm going to be out. And that leads to a very tight stop on something that's trending nicely. which again is why it's one of my favorite setups. Makes the idea really simple here. Next one is AbbVie, ABBV. This is in the healthcare space. Not only held up great yesterday, nice strong candle at the top end of this kind of, you call it a flag or a downward channel or whatever, however you want to call it. But the idea is we have this upper trend line. If we can break through that around 230, this is a pretty simple buy. And then if we lose that, if we lose kind of 220, then I'm out. And you can see I'm just starting with a first principles of show me all the stuff they didn't sell, draw very basic, very simple technical analysis patterns that you'd find in any book, and then make very simple decision points. Above this price, I want to be in. Below this price, I want to be out. Burke B. So, good job. Nice little triangle. Good job for the new guy. Held up pretty good yesterday and has been doing really good recently. You can see I still have the retire line on there. I'll probably leave that on there forever. That's the price at which Warren Buffett said he would retire. So above that, I think is really interesting because it shows, faith in the new guy and holding up really well, and a nice little wedge here that we could be breaking out of. So this is another simple above 510. I'm interested. Below 510, it's time to go. And then last but not least is Ford, right? So huge kind of pushing Ford, gave back a lot of it later in the day. So it was an after earnings report, which I like because it means there's some sort of fundamental catalyst. I don't really care what it is, but there's some fundamental catalyst there. And this is the same kind of thing. Above 14 is interesting. Below 14, it's not. And this is the beauty, I think, of systematic trading and of technical analysis, especially in these volatile markets, where I'm not going to be one that tells you that you can just, if you know technical analysis, you can open up any chart and predict where it's going. That's not true, and it's not what we're trying to do. But in moments like this, there's very simple steps that we can go through to find where the money is flowing into, or even in down markets, more importantly, where the money's not flowing out of. And that's what I'm going to be spending a lot of today and a lot of the weekend doing. That's what a lot of my systems do for me automatically, is just say, hey, where's the money going to? When everything in the world got scary, where did the big money, the large institutional investors, where did they buy into? Or again, where did they not sell? And then from that, I have a pretty good understanding of the people that are in the know, where they're hiding out, and I'm going to hide out there with them.
If you zoom out a little bit, I think Sharif and I were actually having this conversation this morning. I heard on another podcast a very interesting narrative on this. A lot of people have been talking about, it's rotation, it's rotation, it's rotation, which is maybe partially true. But as you alluded to, if you really, really look at what is working, it's the companies that have an actual thing you can hold, a hard asset of some sort, or a product like a car, like a Ford or a Caterpillar or oil or XOM, or even healthcare, I think is a really good example, because the AI argument with healthcare is it can actually improve a product or speed up the R&D process to have new products coming to market versus just destroying the product altogether. So anything with that hard physical asset that you can hold is working right now. Anything that isn't, that is software based, we've talked about to death, high margin companies typically aren't. So more and more, it's becoming clear that there's a shift towards that. I don't even know what you want to call it, the hard asset area of the market, airlines, hotels, like things like that LLMs are just not going to be able to replace.
Yeah, I think I listened to the same podcast, and that it was a really good point. And it's basically the market trying to figure out who is left standing at the end. And that is going to be the place in which I think there's going to be the most money for the most people. And if you're smart enough to do that without, charts, then that's great. But I think that is hitting the nail on the head. A lot of what's happening is that people are worried about not necessarily that a company, and let's pick on Adobe for a second, not necessarily that it's going to completely go away and disappear or anything like that, but more about they can't raise prices anymore. And in fact, they might need to lower prices. They might need to lower them dramatically. And there's going to be some software companies that are going to learn to use AI, and they're going to be just fine on their own, but their products are going to be cheaper. Again, Cloud Code's like $20 a month. And that's a big part of it. But so what people are doing is they're trying to flock to areas, knowing that the market's still strong, the economy's still strong, that these people are just not going to be affected. And I think it's more of a hideout there wait for the market to figure out which of these software companies are going to benefit from AI and which ones are going to be completely destroyed from AI, and then move back in after that. But at the end of the day, it's rotation, and I just, the old technical analysis saying is rotation is the lifeblood of a bull market. So as long as we're seeing them sell some things and buy other things, I think we're okay. It's when they sell everything, I think that's when it's time to really get worried.
If you zoom out just real quick on the Nasdaq, here I'll bring up a Nasdaq chart, or the Qs anyways. If you zoom out to a daily chart, this is that choppy back and forth area that we've been talking to. It feels more and more like not only are we going to test the lower end of this range, the SPY a little bit cleaner maybe for the S&P, but maybe even see what happens below, the bottom end of that range, which if you zoom out far enough, I mean, to me is still constructive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would hurt in the moment, but we could already go and test that prior high that you're seeing there in 2024, 2025. And if we come all the way down to that before the tariff tantrum, right there, and we find support there, then on the very long term, that's still constructive, but it's going to take us a bear market to get there. Now, I've been bringing these charts periodically about we experience chop and noise and mess until the end of the midterm election that's coming out, just historically through this year. And the volume of that chop is generally 30%. So it just means from the very low of the chop to the very high of the chop, it's about 30%. So you get about a 15% pullback and about a 15% rally, and then you just kind of chop around that side of things. So chop can certainly mean high volatility, right? That 15% would definitely break some of these prior lows and test that. I think what we need to see to start getting worried, though, is a sustained move under that low. And to have that happen on the indexes, what we need is this rotation to stop. And like I just talked about, with everything selling. So as soon as software goes down and we don't see Ford rallying and we don't see Boeing holding up, and they start to go after these names that have been safe havens, then I think we're just kind of chopping as the market's going to rebalance. So if NVIDIA goes down as the largest component because people are worried about AI trade slowing or something like that, but we have all these other stocks going up, then that will create that chop. If they just say, I'm out, and they go to bonds or something like that, then that's a little bit of a worrisome thing. So I think it's time to start looking at the risk-off assets, bonds and things like that. I would have said gold, but that's just has a life of its own at this point.
You're making Obi really upset. He's throwing his dishes around here on set. It's always fascinating. I mean, it's a really, really interesting time, I think, in the market that we haven't seen in a long, long time. And, there's going to be opportunities here definitely coming up. The timeline on that, remains to be seen. So have a wonderful weekend, Mr. Naas. We will catch you again on Monday.
I'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. Fantastic stuff from Mr. Naas and Brenda. Once again, we'll see them hopefully Monday morning. All right, guys, let's kick things off with some analyst actions this morning. We're going to start off with Pinterest, guys, going from a buy to a hold by Loop Capital. You're down 21%, a little bit more now, guys, around 22%. So not too good of a look here in Pinterest. Maybe we get a little bit of a continuation to the downside. Now, as for Dollar Tree, also getting the downgrade as well, guys, from BMO Capital, going from a $110 price target to $95. DraftKings down substantially as well. These earnings names are getting hit heavy, guys. Bank of America giving that downgrade from a price target of around $37.50 to $30. So that's a hefty haircut by Bank of America, down 15 3/4 there. Upstart also getting the downgrade as well, too, by Citigroup, down only 0.25%, so not too bad here, guys. UPST going from a buy to a neutral here, so a downgrade there. Now, moving forward, we're going to take a look at some of the upgrades, guys. Airbnb at the top of the list, surprisingly. So hold to a buy, but with a price target of $154. By Deutsche Bank, you're up 5 1/3 here this morning. Applied Materials continuing its climb higher here, guys, up 10%. A massive gap up and a break through some key pivot levels. KGI Securities giving them the nod there. $425 is going to be that price target. Now, Rivian continuing its move higher, up to $17.80 with a price target of $16. So we have now surpassed that. Joseph SPAC giving that upgrade there, guys, once again up 20%. And Zscaler cybersecurity name that has been getting hit heavy as of late, but getting the upgrade by Sanford C. Bernstein from a market perform to an outperform with a price target of $228, guys.
All right.
Thank
you very much. No, I dropped my plate. I went to go put in my my earpiece in. I went to go plug it in, and the plate was hanging, just like maybe like half a centimeter, maybe 1 centimeter. That's about a quarter of an inch for you guys there.
That's just a poor risk manager right there.
Maybe.
Because I
didn't even know. I went down and I just started did like a triple backflip, and I thought I was watching the Olympics for a second.
You guys can't see this. There's a distinct difference between plate placement and where, like, I have a plate on my desk, but like, I can't.
Dude, look at the clearance here.
Not on the edge.
You know what I mean? Like,
see where he keeps it on the edge, which is fine. But I have a big thing about unnecessary risk. I truly I truly like live by this one. I feel like the way I always approach things is if there is zero downside to doing something, but any small upside and no effort, then I do it. And if there is a reasonably decent downside to something, but zero upside, then what am I doing with that? It's like, why do I need to have the glass on the edge of the table? And I tell this to sometimes I'll say this at home, look at my wife, I'm like, you could literally just put that like somewhere in the middle of the table. You just put it on the edge. For no apparent reason, you're gonna do it. And think of the other side of that equation when you think about it logically is, even if it's a low probability event, it's like imagine having a lottery ticket. Like, I don't believe in buying the lottery, but if you had a lottery ticket or if you found one and then you just didn't check it because you're like, there's no chance it could win, so you didn't even bother to check it. Does it take you much of an effort to check it? I'm not saying you should buy one, but that's the other side of the equation. Forget about plates for a second and making them crash, because the only thing crashing right now is Pinterest and some of those downgrades. And it's ugly. I wish we could give them 4 thumbs down, but I only have 2. Shout out to Dave Chappelle. This is, it's bad when you've got to go I'm pulling back the monthly chart and thinking about COVID all-time low. This is what we're talking about here. Like, we're looking back to COVID lows. We're at $14.50. This is the 2020 lowest open or close of a single month was right at the 1450 level. We lose 14 on Pinterest, and basically you're just thinking down bottom here. So this is going to be on the radar. A lot of times, and we were talking about this with regard to, we were just talking about like breakdowns trading with ASTS and whatnot. Anyways, it's at VWAP already, which makes it a bit trickier because I think I have to respect the fact that you could try to push back into the 15. But if we break the low, it's that VWAP retrace short that I would be looking for in pins. Yeah, downgrade, but it doesn't matter. They don't have much left going for them to be missing on top and bottom. They still have growth, but the problem is competition is way too fierce. And at some point, they will get low enough that there'll be some shreds that someone might want to pick up for a deal. I'm not sure they're at that point yet. Usually think about that when it breaks through some all-time lows. But Pinterest on the radar for the other side of it, unlike Rivian.
Yeah, out of those names, I really like AMAT here. Again, AMAT we just talked about, very, very strong, getting that upgrade as well on that earnings report. So how are we looking like here on the daily? All-time highs here, Neil. I really do like that. While the rest of the market is getting taken to the woodshed, you can see a couple names here catching a bit of a bid. So I'm really curious to see. This prior high here was 344.60s. Currently in the pre-market, the high or the after hours high, which is the current high, is 374.89. So let's see if we can get through that 375, that last quarter before the 400 potentially comes in here on AMAT. So yeah, a bit of an upgrade. Maybe we get that double factor of confluence, but I definitely weigh the earnings a lot more than the upgrade. But doing something distinctly different from that of the market definitely attracts me to this one. One of the top ideas on my list today, I'll be honest, is a potential continuation, but we'll see. If it doesn't continue, I like that as well, and maybe taking it through pre-market or the bounce lows here as well. But applied materials to the upside is very strong, and that upgrade catching, maybe giving us a better sentiment as well.
Before we go back up to the desk, a couple of things happening here. SNDK and Micron both just broke through their lows of the day. Ears to the ground. I haven't heard a specific story on the memory chip names at all. I'm just sort of scanning through. I'm not seeing anything, not hearing anything. On the other side of the coin, Coinbase is up 9%. So after we thought was a nothing burger on Coinbase earnings, at one point it was actually flat, it was down, it was up. It's like, we're not really doing anything. Coinbase maybe has found itself a temporary bottom. So up 9%. I'm just going to go out to a higher time frame chart on Coin. I'm sure, it's probably going to be on the run now, but while it's on the mind, worth remembering that this is at a triple bottom here. Weekly, monthly, doesn't make a difference. I just already happen to be on a monthly. I guess it'll look better on a weekly chart. Yeah, it looks way better on a weekly chart. As you can see, bit of a triple bottom here, which it's trying to bounce off of that 143, and we're now sitting at $153. So the fact that it was able to rally away from this level, I think it bodes well for Coin, and it's doing so without much happening in Bitcoin. So big key level for a bounce here on Coinbase. We'll try to figure out what's going on there with Micron and some of their cohorts. Is usually a strong name. You got the market going up, and it's a little bit strange, let's just say, to be seeing Micron hitting the bid here while the market's looking strong. It's usually been a leader. Like yesterday, these guys were leaders. Yeah, kind of a weird one.
Just having a look at financials here. It's been, 1, 2, 3, 4 days in a row downside here for banks in general. Michael Naas was pointing out the ones that have been working, ones that haven't been working. Yes, there are a few in this group that have, but going back, I guess it was about a month ago, we were talking about how banks were so strong, potentially leading the market to highs, but it's definitely not been the case in the past couple of weeks here. Goldman just cracked yesterday, goes out on the very, very lows of the session. We're set to open in that area this morning as well. I was just seeing the CEO reluctantly accepting the resignation of the firm's top lawyer, who apparently was in the Epstein files and has resigned because of that. So, I mean, I'm not saying this is going to kick off more selling in the banks or whatever. This is very, very specific to Goldman. But it's interesting to see that group starting to crack a little bit.
Can I tell you something, Brendo? I thought this was going to be a group that was really going to benefit from President Trump's Trump 2.0, okay? Because we were talking about the regulatory tailwind that they were going to get. There was going to be deregulation. They didn't have to keep as much money, locked up for a rainy day, so to speak. But now we're seeing this more populist push, and it's bipartisan, mind you, where they want interest rates specifically on credit cards to drop. That is one of their most profitable segments. And we've seen sort of back and forth commentary by CEOs about wanting to push back against that. And we know Senator Elizabeth Warren and President Trump had a conversation to that effect. So I do feel there may be some bipartisan populist, pushback against some of these institutions on one of their most profitable products. So I feel like, we're going to have to certainly keep an eye on that. And let's just be honest. With the cost of living in the foremost of people's minds and the the primaries, or not the primaries, sorry, the midterms coming up in a few months, that's going to be front and center here by obviously the incumbents. They're going to want to drop, or at least give the aura or the view that they're dropping some of these rates to kind of gain favor with the populace. So I feel like this might be a bigger issue going in the next couple of months.
We'll see. And if you zoom out, again, banks by no means broken here. I mean, that's just XLF. We're definitely coming into key areas that this thing needs to start to find some support and maybe bounce. We'll see what happens today. But going back to November, I guess, beginning of December, we had that low around $51 for XLF. But if it doesn't, I mean, that's just another one to put on the board of the, weaker than the rest side that was doing quite well, up to just a month ago or so. So anyway, let's jump into the market here, and then we'll talk about the watch list.
All right, let's have a look at where we closed off on the the SPY now we're doing. Well, we lost a lot of trends, guys, but hey, we're still above these key technical levels. That was a sell-off. I want to say early February, we got down to 673 to quite make it down there yesterday. It got to about 680. So that's what we're going to say. We're going to say 680 as our first level of general support. If we really catch a bid, we're looking at that shelf that we kept having trouble with, Brendo, back on the 29th of, we were using a support on the 29th of January and on the 3rd of February. We're looking at that 686 to 687 area as resistance.
It's starting to look like that's an ugly chart. It's like it's starting to look like, you know, those tennis ball trackers that are just like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's like ping pong. Anyway, link is below for that. If you haven't done so, of course, grab the watch list. It's free. Top link in the description will get you to the sign up page. You need your email, and that's it. And then you just get everything you need to know sent right to your inbox every single day. Here's Coinbase on a daily chart. We were touching on this after the close last night a little bit. I mean, there's April, and then you got to go back to the end of 2024. I mean, we're just sitting on this shelf. It needs to be the level that ends up, you know, being supported here for Coinbase if it's going to start going back up at any time. But overall, the report not terrible. I mean, there was definitely some question marks here.
Yeah, and as I look at Neil's screen, it's up 9 2/3%. Despite, Breno, Q4 revenue, $667 million. Let's compare that to the $1.37 billion they took home last year. So almost cut in half there. Sustained slump in crypto trading activities being blamed for that, with net income also suffering. $2.49 per share. Compare that to the $4.58 per share they had last year. Transaction volumes remain under pressure. Speaking of those transactions, total transaction revenue fell to $551 million. That is down 37% year over year. But let's be honest, the fact that it's up 9 1/3, 9 1/4 right now means that the market was already pricing this in. No, it was no surprise to anybody that crypto trading revenue was down when crypto's getting clipped. Q1 transaction revenue guidance, $420 million. That is below the street's expectations, and subscription and services revenue is expected to be $550 to $630. But I think that the street was really optimistic about what some are calling the, super cycle, or whatever term they're using now for the prediction markets. It really does seem to kind of be taking this whole thing over by storm.
The gateway drug going forward for stock market and trading in general. 155 a couple of days ago ends up being a pretty solid line in the sand, guys, for Coinbase. We're right there right now.
Yeah, Armstrong thinks he could be up to $10 billion of revenue eventually in those in that prediction market. But first of all, Sharif, why you gotta be looking at my chart, bro? You got your own charts. Don't be staring at my. Well, you know what? Because I'm the one that puts like you could always see, because I put like the biggest font you can for the title and the percentage points. You can see it from like a mile away. Look, ball doesn't lie here. I don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty about why this was a mixed report, or at best, I think your best interpretation could be a mixed report, I think. And in a lot of ways, yuck is how you should be thinking about it. But it doesn't, at this point, it doesn't matter. You know, I didn't really have this on the radar when we were just chilling out trading at 148 bucks. It wasn't really on the list of anything that was exciting. The only concern I have is, like I said, I don't love chasing that 830 move. So this rounded bottom, which seems like an obvious, well, just break out 155 and you've got a bit of a gap to fill. Not chasing an 830 move up. Everything is pressed higher. I'd rather, if I look to be bullish, buying some dips. Maybe we'll see that in Rivian. But the 150, that could be a place so you dip, hold 150 off the open, or at least somewhere in that range, like 50 to 52. Look for a reversion back up so that you're not worrying about taking off the top here on a Friday, which could be a little bit trappish. So let's be real. It wasn't that big of a quarter that you're like, oh, I just think it's going to be a long. If the chart says long, just got to be looking for that as well. Shouldn't matter too much when it's got its own catalyst, obviously, because it had earnings. And again, this is not like they're not just a Bitcoin play, but it is worth mentioning that Bitcoin is not into this little double top area. I'm still thinking bearish here. So it could get weird if all of a sudden Coinbase sets up like that great long, and we end up getting into this 38.5 to 38.8 area where we're looking short yesterday as well. So I'm not really changing that tune. I think as strong as the market has been and this bounce that we're seeing, is anybody actually seeing any continuation or reason to turn from bearish to bullish in Coinbase? I'm not seeing it, so I'm going to look short again. I feel like every day it's broken record on IBIT.
I think that's a fair look here, Neil. I'm looking here at the monthly chart because we're coming into some higher time frame levels here. As Neil pointed out, 150s has been interesting. We came there here September of 24, and then once again April of 25. That aggressive bid that came in not only on Coinbase but into the rest of the market. That's where we found some demand here twice in the past couple of years. So we're pulling back in, but a lot more aggressively as well. So you can see here, beautiful downtrend on the monthly chart. Let's go down to the weekly and take a look at some of these levels here. You can see coming into that support level, maybe pulling potentially down here into this 118s. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking a little short here on this name. Catching a bit of a bid in the pre-market. And if we're talking about reversions, Neil, man, last night, off of the initial reaction, this reversion was absolutely solid when the price action started to calm down. This was about, roughly about, was this 135 all the way to 140, so almost a $10 range. But when that calms down, pulls back in, the bid catches right back on. This 136, 137 level was quite nice here for the pushback through. And you can see here, I dropped an anchored on the initial reaction right here. Let's just drop it down to this candle. You can see price did reclaim over this moving average. And then in the pre-market session, we held above those reaction highs and now pushing a little bit higher into some prior levels that we've seen earlier on this week. So interesting. I think this has, I don't necessarily have a strong bias coming in off of the open, but I will be potentially looking for sellers. And if it catches a bid on earnings day, that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to try to revert it back down to the downside, but catching a bid off of a strong dip into this prior zone of demand is very interesting to me. Let's see if we can break just simple levels. Right now, we're consolidating in and around prior day's highs. We'll go up a time frame. I like to work with a 3-minute. So you can see consolidating in and around prior day's highs, consolidating in and around Wednesday's levels as well. You can see aggressive selling that came in on Wednesday with some strong volume as well. Maybe not so much relative volume, but that high is coming in at 160, only about $6 away. So all within range of what Coinbase is able to do on the intraday scale. Definitely doing some decent relative volume in the pre-market session. As we come into the open, this relative volume, which is on a 5-day period, is starting to increase all the way up to 2.75 times daily traded volume. So definitely one of the names on watch. Maybe not the top name, Neil, but I'll be watching some Bitcoin as well to see if Bitcoin has any aggressive moves. We'll go straight to the monthly on this one and see how that one's panning out. You can see here catching a bit of a bid off of that dip down into 60s. It seems like almost yesterday we were in and around these 90s and 100s, and I was just like, yeah, 50% pullback well within range, and we're coming into some of those levels as of right now on Bitcoin. So with a weaker crypto arena, we'll see how Coinbase finishes the day off on Friday the 13th.
All right, let's talk Rivian, just off the highs. It actually just made recently a new high up to 1780. We're coming back in a little bit here. I mean, decent report. You can't, as Neil was mentioning earlier, you can't really jump for joy here. They're still losing money, but they're losing less money per vehicle specifically, which was a really, really good indication. They focused a lot on the call. They focused a lot on the report itself about the R2 and the speed at which they're going to be able to get this thing in the hands of customers. The more that are out there, I think the better it'll be.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be the needle mover because it's a lot more affordable, And we saw, well, on YouTube now there are many different, car review enthusiasts who are reviewing the R2, is obviously scheduled by Rivian. So you want to know more about that? Quick YouTube search there. But your point well taken, and as I see on Neil's chart there, up 24.25%. Clearly they're doing something right here, even though the numbers year over year, Neil, I'm sorry, buddy, are down. $120 million in gross profit on $1.3 billion in revenue. That beats expectations, but when you compare it to the year-over-year number, it's not that good because revenue declined from $1.7 billion not last year, and the net loss, even though it is narrower than the $1 billion they lost last year on the quarter, about $840 million, they're still losing money, as you made very clear, Brendo. They delivered 9,745 vehicles in Q4 of 25. That is down markedly from the 14,183 they delivered in 24 on the quarter, reflecting, of course, that weaker EV demand. Part of that reason is the cancellation of the $7,500 EV tax credit back in September by President Trump's administration. But Brendo, U.S. EV sales fell 36% year over year in Q4 of 25 as compared to 24. So you can't really dog them for having lower deliveries. It's an industry-wide problem.
Yeah, and demand problem at this point as well. But as we were saying, if we can start targeting the lower price end of the spectrum here, it's going to be positive. But uphill battle, to say the least, I think, guys, still for Rivian.
Just saw Vangador 007 in the chat says, NIO sells more cars in a quarter than Rivian in the entire year. Well, we can't really, look, I get it. The Chinese EV names are doing better than the US. And if you're not named Tesla, then this is just how it is right now. We know it. I don't think anyone's trying to hide from that truth. Just ignore a couple of those wicks. Let me go back to a 15-minute chart here. Rivian has a local high. Go back to the 22nd of January, and it's right around this 17, and you can sort of see like an obvious and absurd trend reverse since then. There's this level way too far away, which was significant for 16 bucks. If we lose the 17, suffice to say, 15 half to $16 is like, that would be your like crazy absurd dip buy zone. But it's 17 even that needs to hold the open. I'm never a huge fan on a gap up when you are already making in a pretty distinct lower high. So this little downtrend that we're in, we're gonna need to break that above the 17 level. Otherwise, I would think you're in risk of a gap fill. But you also have to keep in mind how much this is still from the highs, like the recent highs, up at like $22.50. There's a lot of room for it to go. So this is the kind of stock, okay, so even if it starts dipping in the open, I want to give it a chance to go. If it isn't some crazy just instant breakout, if it breaks a downtrend, I'll be taking a shot at it if it's over 16. If it can't, 17, if it loses that 17, be patient with it getting down to 16 bucks. This is something that we talked about yesterday, or I think it was 2 days ago, for patience, just as an example. Like, oops, that's way too far. This is an example. Like the other day, it was 2 days ago when we had this huge reversal, and I remember saying, okay, well, Intel's not along till 17 bucks. And it was breaking in the open. It's like, okay, pulling back 1%, 2%, 3%, like let it actually get down. And eventually you wait for it to get to that key price when there's extreme volatility, and it eventually gets there. So I'd feel that way if we lost 17 on Rivian, that just let it, if it tries to extend further down, don't chase to be in early on a down move, because that can lead to a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think the main thing for Rivian for me is that it came into some key levels for me. I think coming into this $14 level, as well as some prior anchors. Now this is an hourly chart. I have some prior anchors from much further back, and you can see every time we come into these areas, I can go back and see where they're coming from. We'll just go to like a weekly here. You can see coming in from some of these lows that we were making and higher highs, as well as we kind of start to trend back up. Bigger picture, I was looking at this break of trend, but we've only gone sideways since then. Now again, this is on the weekly. We'll go back down into the hourly here. Looking quite decent, but I was telling Neil, this has a lot of headwind to get past. A lot of potential places where we can meet some resistance here. You can see maybe some 18 halves, maybe, and this is as of recent. This is just at the beginning of January, right? We hit these highs here coming into the end of 2025, and that's sitting at 2273s. Currently trading at 17 halves, just shy of that. So right here, 21s, and then maybe 18 halves is what I'm looking at here. If we do get a strong opening drive off of this earnings reaction, it's showing some great price action in the after hours and in the pre-market, just stepping up higher and higher. You can see it on the 15-minute or a shorter time frame much more clearly. You can see initial consolidation flag breakout off of the morning, pulls back into earnings reaction highs here at 16 halves roughly, and then stepping up once again onto these 5:30 a.m. highs here with those lows coming in at $17. So I'll be looking for that maybe continuation going into the open, but also keeping in mind that there is a lot of headwind for Rivian on the upside. So open to both ways here on this stock. We'll see what it does off of the open.
All right, a couple things just popping up here. They're talking a little bit about where the inflation came from in this report, and overall it is right across the board actually down. Still food is the highest, it looks like. Energy and housing, though, with a little bit of a downtick. So I think that's important going forward.
Apple, anybody trying to get meat, especially here, kind of knows that that's the case, Brendo. Yeah.
Remortgage your house before you go to the grocery store. Apple, with a bit of a delayed reaction to this data print this morning at 8:30, we did get a nice uptick there, coming back into essentially this shelf that was built overnight after the close, and then this morning as well. But ugly day, obviously, yesterday for Apple, the worst, in fact, since last April, and the tariff sell-off that the overall market endured on an FTC note. Whether or not we get any follow-through from that today, let's see.
Shedding $200+ billion in market cap in a day, in less than a day. Obviously, it was during regular trading hours. The story is today that FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson has sent a letter directly to CEO Tim Cook questioning the alleged political bias within Apple News. The letter claims Apple News may have promoted left-leaning outlets while suppressing conservative publications. Ferguson suggested such practices, if proven, would raise concerns under the FTC Act related to unfair or deceptive practices. However, the FTC emphasized it is not policing speech, but protecting consumers from misrepresentation or omissions. This centers, though, around content curation transparency rather than the actual core or hardware or services issues. It's about curation. Allegations include reports that Apple News did not feature articles from conservative-leaning outlets in recent months while promoting liberal publications. That hasn't been tested. The veracity of that statement hasn't been tested. It's not known whether that's accurate or not. But just from a general sense, most media institutions, the large ones, are more left-leaning than right-leaning. So it stands to reason that if Apple is going to quote the biggest institutions, then they likely will have a left-leaning bias.
Whether or not we get some sort of bounce today remains to be seen, but we are at an area here this morning where, I mean, we theoretically could. This 260, 261 area on a daily chart, guys, looking decent at least for Apple.
Yeah, it was a bit of a delayed reaction, but eventually Apple did follow the market back up after that CPI print. So, you know, that was the sign that had me initially concerned that we're just going to straight up lose 260, and then you're going to have a bit of a gap fill and a potential another disaster day. Still going to be a big level, that 260, but the fact that we're back above the shelf for most of the afternoon, actually just most of the afternoon, pretty much the entirety of the afternoon, at this 262 half, 263. Like, that's the litmus. If Apple is over this in the open range, I think you're looking longs. And if it anywhere inside here to the 260, I feel like that's like your trap chop zone. And then the downside is going to be through. I'm not going to try to parse whether, like, I mean, some people are going to say that the Siri delay is a bigger deal than that news story. And other people are going to say, no, this story is a bigger deal. I'm trying to question how much either one of those materially matters. It didn't feel to me like this was deserving of that 5% move to the downside yesterday, but the ball doesn't lie. If we lose 260, I think you're in a world of trouble. The market's already starting to come back in here for Apple. I think you're much more comfortable looking for a bounce off 245 to 250 like we were saying earlier. So yeah, this is not one that I want to stand in the way of, even if we're getting a little bit of a market bounce.
All going to be looking at that one. Very flat consolidation there. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 touches of that 260, and then pushing back up. Yes, with the market, but again, market tailwind going to be very dependent. I think we'll see if it catches any sort of a reversion or a retracement back in. This was an aggressive sell, but honestly, I'm thinking that if this selling is not over, we're definitely within range to see that 260 and maybe pull back into some of these 256s, 255s as well. This was the earnings reaction low coming in and around that 255, 256 level, and then earnings day one low coming in just shy of 252s at 251.96s. So we'll see. I mean, I love reversions, Neil. You know that already. But honestly, this aggressive selling, if we get same kind of market tailwind that we got yesterday, I'm definitely going to be watching that 260. Going to be interesting. And I guess the market didn't like that the Siri delay happened, right? I think that's where we kind of saw this selling coming in initially on Wednesday, coming into the afternoon session. That was a nice consolidation. We were trading almost up at these highs there, potentially pushing that 280, and then boom, strong aggressive selling, and then continuation happening yesterday here. No sign of a bounce at all. This was how we can take a quick measurement of this bounce here. We trade down what was this? We can go right here, roughly about 5.5% to the downside, and there's a bounce coming in at just under 1%. So I was just like, all right, cool. You can only bounce about 1/5 of the move. That is absolutely no bounce for me. Let's see if we catch a bit of a continuation today through that 160 or through that 260. But if we're going to catch a bid, let's find some levels here as well. You can see here, just looking back at recent levels, maybe 267. That's all the way. That's about almost $5 away here as we're trading around 262. So I'm open to this going either way, but more leaning towards the side of that continuation, especially with that aggressive selling that we've been seeing, not only just on Apple. Apple was lagging behind. We saw some selling coming in earlier on this week and prior week as well, and then Apple, it seems like all of it came in on one day. So very interesting kind of price action. I think you were talking about how this was the most selling it's done in X amount of years intraday.
It was basically a calendar year.
Yeah.
Because obviously there was well, you were on this that morning, the tariff gap down morning.
I think so. Maybe.
I wasn't here. I remember because remember it was Apple through 200. Because the only reason I remember that day specifically was because you actually couldn't get the break. It was at 196, 197.
Yeah.
And so like I'm talking about right before the open, it was at 96, 97. So if you set a stop order to go long through 200, by that point, like the algos were buying it up so crazy that morning that you couldn't get the breakout. Like you had to take like the initial break. If you had like a 97 break, you might have gotten it. But like the stories that you'd hear from traders, like, well, did anyone get any breakouts at the open? It's like, nope, no fills, because the algos just shoot everything up to the buy side that day. I don't think we're not having that kind of a moment. It's not that ugly. Although, I mean, Pins is having that kind of a moment. Not that there's going to be people that seem to want to buy it that much off of the open. But, yeah, Apple, it could be worse. Their chart could look like Pins, and then you'd say real trouble. Like, you're past the point of trouble if your chart's like Pins.
Just going through the entire breakdown here of CPI, it was still the same thing, same as always. Shelter basically flat. Food was the uptick. It was 0.8%. 3.1% for food, energy 0.3, basically flat. Specifically, new vehicles, used vehicles, and apparel, all downside.
I believe that.
Used vehicles specifically, 1.1%, negative 1.1% on that print. So something's going in the right direction.
Anecdotal story.
Yeah.
You know, I sold my car in August, right? Early August, late July. My car now, that one year newer model, so the 22 had the 21. The 22 is going for $3,000 less than I sold my car 6 months ago, Brendan.
Good timing.
Yeah.
Top ticked it. Pinterest definitely not going to top tick anything today. Getting absolutely hammered here this morning, rightfully so. Absolutely. The report was bad. Yeah. Let's just put it that way. Forecast not great either. I mean, $14 if you zoom out, kind of maybe something.
It's a tough look. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's talk about this because the company's trying to go through a restructuring here. But yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better, it looks like. EPS, 67 pennies in line with the consensus being about up from the 56 pennies last year. So there is a bottom line improvement there despite some operational headwinds, which we'll get into in a second. Revenue, $1.32 billion, missing the 1.33, but up about 14% year over year. Adjusted profit margin missed expectations, adding to the concern about the ad monetization and the efficiency of the company. And now it is hitting the lowest price it's been at since July of 2022, and we all know what 2022 looked like. Current quarter guidance also disappointed. Wall Street expected about 15% revenue growth. They didn't get it. The stock's already down 28% since the restructuring announcement in January already. And here's what they want to do, Brendo. They're sadly going to lay off 15% of their workforce and redirect the savings into AI investments. Management here is aiming to transform the platform from visual mood boards into an AI-powered shopping assistant. That's going to require heavy investments in AI, hence why the EPS maybe and some more CapEx may be required.
Definitely a short at some point today, guys. That said, though, it's one of those stocks where we're down so much at this point. Upside might be easier.
They want to be more like Pinterest. Pinterest wants to be a little bit more like Instagram, huh? It's too late. It's too late. Honestly, I'm going to look for a short today on Pinterest. I'll leave it at that. There's not much like, what are you going to do? You're going to pull up. I had a weekly chart up. I had a monthly chart up to show you some of the places that this has gone down to. Look, the thing is, it could actually, because we're trading at 14.20, really, we could actually bounce off the 2020 lows. The wick bottom on the recovery candle from COVID is 13.30. So I think if we got down to there, like in the 13 to 13.5 range, that seems like a reasonable spot. Like if you look at a lot of charts from the COVID lows, there was that higher low where you push back up, and then there was a support level that's held up for a lot of things. So the fact that Pinterest is there, first of all, that's disgusting that they're back to that price. But if it got there, you're down like 30-something%. There might be a little bit of a turn. Until then, we're trending down. I'll look first at VWAP and then pre-market highs for a curl. I think I wrote down 15 and 15.50, but that was a lot earlier in the day. Until then, going to look to fade some Pinterest off of the open. We have locates on it. Just realized that I hadn't double checked, but we have free shorts on Pinterest. No, it does look pretty ugly. They're making some changes. They're laying off. I think they have to do that kind of stuff. The question becomes, is it too late? Are they able to make this turnaround? This quarter doesn't really show you that anything like that is true. I just saw someone in the chat say, what the heck is Pinterest? Exactly.
I mean, hey, I still use that app every now and then. I think it's a good reference. No, I'm being honest. It really depends on what you're looking for. Sometimes like interior design suggestions, sometimes outfit suggestions. I'm going out. I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to wear. You know what I mean? Hey, man. Okay. Anyways, I think it's good. It has its uses. It's a good tool.
Because I know you're trolling us.
Think about it. You're going out on a date. You want to look nice. You're just like, okay, well, damn. Okay, I don't know what to wear with this, that, or the other.
You for
be like, okay, be like blue sweater outfit, and then it'll show you all the things that complement a blue sweater.
Does anybody actually believe that Obi's not messing?
Regardless, let's see how we can kind of look at this chart here. It's coming into some interesting levels here. All the way from 22, a lot of chop here, and this is where we caught a bid. That ultimate low coming in at $16 here at the same time. So I'm watching some of those levels here. Aggressive selling back-to-back earnings. You can see strong sells every single time, almost every single time whenever it does catch a sell and break these trends. So we're getting more of the same, but now back into some level of interest from a couple years ago. So how I see this, Neil, is we're coming into multi-year lows at $16, currently trading at $18. So aggressive selling off of the reaction, bleeding out into the open here. I'm going to be watching that $14 level, but where is anchored VWAP? That's sitting right at 15 right now, just shy of that $15 level here. So we'll see. We're already below the earnings reaction level at the same time. So I know those you guys are going crazy. And here's the thing: my sister, she's basically like a fashion designer, so I get it from there. I'm just gonna say that.
You don't even know Pinterest. Your sister's a fashion designer.
Yeah, but here's the thing: growing up, I'd always go to her, and be like, "Hey, how does this look if I'm going out?"
But that's reasonable.
Yeah, but now I can't just like video call her all the time and be like, "Hey, yo, listen."
You could always video call your family.
Oh, of course.
Always. It's never too often to call your brothers, sisters, whatever. We have one more name to get to. 2 minutes till the open. You don't use Pinterest. Stop.
Yeah.
We just want a quick look at the imbalance locator. Nothing really there, even though it's a Friday NCLH small sell. I didn't see anything pop up, and nothing over $500,000 except for Success. Small sell there on DraftKings, 350,000 for them. They reported actually trying to bounce. I think DraftKings was one last one. Then we get to the open. AMAT. Hey, good news. Somebody that beat and made another fresh high.
It can happen. Positive earnings report and positive stock reaction here. I say that because it's been one of those earnings seasons where we've had, bad reports sold, good reports sold, and not much of anything in between. So good to see.
We're short on time, Brendo, so I'm just going to basically say, AMAT's commentary echoes exactly what we heard from Lam Research and ASML, that these chip-making equipment manufacturers, Brendo, they are right now in a huge tailwind for this AI build-out. You can look at the Caterpillars as well, but the chip makers definitely running.
Definitely a strong look here this morning, guys. We're back to, Aftermarket highs here as support, maybe that holds. Thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like this is one where, look, AMAT's quarter was gorgeous. There's no question about it. I don't like the lack of continuation. When the market was breaking back through the highs, it effectively failed the top. And when we're pulling back into higher lows on the Nasdaq, this is pulling back into lower highs, into VWAP. I'm fearful of a bit of a gap fill here that's going to happen with AMAT. I love the stock, and we were talking about the names that we're looking at in the earnings. I'm like, this is, to me, this was the best name out there. But now you've got your gap into a fresh high. And I feel like if there's a recovery day in the market, to the upside, there's going to be other places to look at, like an explosive play like a Rivian, which is coming in as well. Oh, by the way, we got like 10 seconds to the bell. So on Friday the 13th, hopefully it's not too ominous out here. We're looking at Rivian, see if we can hold that 17. AMD just took a big turn to the downside as we ring the opening bell. What the heck just happened to AMD? This was not on the imbalance locator. It was chilling out at 208. Immediately a bit of a flush zone there for AMD, which is okay. Let's just double check NVIDIA here. NVIDIA as well. Big sell there at the open on NVIDIA. Micron was under pressure. They continue to be under pressure to the downside. I got to look at, all right, back to what I was trying to pay attention to, which was Intel.
Oh, that's a nasty spread on AMAT.
Intel pushing. I liked Intel at 47 for a short in the note today, but if we're already hitting down on the chips, then I look at prior day low as the first entry. Looking at some Intel there. AMD's trying to bounce. I see Apple is heading right back into the lows. Yeah, no bid yet there on Apple. Not looking good for Apple. That 260 level is going to be a bit of a problem. And Pinterest. Pins is trying to press higher. Yeah, well, let's see if you can get through the top, Pinterest. If you can, congratulations. You've managed to find some buyers in the stock that who knows where it'll be in a year.
Yeah, some aggressive selling coming here on Coinbase at the same time. AMAT is pushing a little bit higher. That spread was a little nasty before, and it still is at certain times, $2 to $3. I'm seeing here 370s potentially coming in. Yes, that is AMAT pushing into that 375 level here. Let's see if we can come in to that 375 at all. 372's on the ask, but this 370 is catching a little bit of turbulence. DraftKings at the same time pulling into that 21 level there. I like that one as well. Pre-market lows in and around these areas. Let's see if we can break down with some oomph. The market just kind of sideways right now, Neil. And Pinterest, wow, look at that continuation. So Pinterest also coming in quite nicely here through some of those pre-market lows. $14 could not hold. Let's see if we can kind of continue to the downside on this one at the same time. I'm going to give it a couple seconds here as we pull in. Market, you can see distinctly different. The Nasdaq is a little red while the ES is a little green here at the same time. So we'll wait and see for this one to see how this one potentially comes in, getting involved with some Pinterest here at the same time.
Oh, yeah, 14 break on Pinterest. So, yeah, samesies. I just said samesies. Feel free to mock me for that one. I'm an idiot. Rivian is bouncing off of the volume-weighted average price as we speak. We're about to go to Adair, but looking to see if we can close above VWAP and just wick that 17. Am looking for the long here as the market's coming back into the upside. Adair, what do you have?
An interesting little pattern here. I was seeing some people in our chat just on the side of my monitor here talking about UNH being strong. It's not just UNH though. It's also VRTX, which did have earnings last night. Eli Lilly. So it seems like a lot of these healthcare charts that are generally also some of these names more expensive, lightly traded, larger spreads. They're all getting this nice green candle to the upside. So just want to let you guys know these expensive healthcare names. Strong start to this Friday the 13th. Back to you.
Yes, we got to stop saying Friday the 13th. It doesn't matter. Doesn't it matter? Who knows? Maybe it does. Don't give me the bruh, Fabian. Oh, I guess it's Andre. Fabian's not even. I just assumed if it's cheeky that it's Fabian. So Rivian bouncing off the volume-weighted average price. Now you're going to do that to me?
There's a 375 AMAT.
What?
375 AMAT.
Oh, that's what that alarm was? So Obi has alarms for stuff. So I'm like, what just happened? 375 on AMAT's insane. No, it's 375?
Yeah, that was the pre-market highs, right? We're coming right back into some of those levels as of right now. But I'm a little bit more focused here on DraftKings. That 375 was quite nice. Got stopped out of that Pinterest as that pulls back in above that 14. Kept that one a little bit tighter than DraftKings, just knowing that DraftKings usually kind of choppy there at the same time. Let's see if we can hold underneath. There's a VWAP level as well on DraftKings. 21 is the low. 21.87s, I think. Let's see, 21. What is the intraday low here? It doesn't show me, but just above 21s is where that's coming in. 375s on AMAT. I'm going to pull this chart up here. AMAT on the Nasdaq. Let's see if that 375 can go with any sort of distinction. That 370 held quite well, Neil, and we're pushing up to some fresh highs. And again, this stock is at all-time highs here. We saw a similar kind of a push there on, what was that stock a couple days ago? VRT. That one also pushed up into all-time highs, and the opening drive on that one was quite nice. Let's see if we get a little bit of a same kind of action here, but the pre-market was distinctly different when you compare AMAT to that VRT. So I am keeping that in mind. Market pulling back in as of right now. Let's see what that Apple is up to. Apple through that 260, Neil. We missed that one right there. 259s coming in here on Apple. So bit of a miss on my part. Did you get involved with that one?
Not on Apple because I was in Rivian. Oh, I'm still back in Rivian. That's pulling back in. Pinterest it broke down under 14, as you mentioned there, and then lost VWAP. Once it broke VWAP, I jumped out. I still kind of like this trade though, because what I'm seeing is you're still getting lower highs, but if it's not going to hold under VWAP, then I want to see it press up to that top so we can try to jump into it. Rivian was able to get some 1780s out, but this is a pretty hefty gap fill. So if we lose this prior support here at that 15 level, got to jump out and wait for something a little bit deeper. And that looks like what's happening here in Rivian. But you're absolutely right about Apple. 260 is now gone. I do not like what that means for the market. The short that I like the most outside of, we were just showing Rivian, was going to be IBIT or Intel, and IBIT is nowhere close to resistance spots yet, and Intel, well, it did not get to 47, so I guess got to throw that one out the window for now. Sometimes it's about the price level, other times and most of the time it's about the price action. So all I can see for Intel is trend up. If we don't get to 47, trend break, and I'm short. So allow it to make its trend higher the second I see some kind of a constructive break, and then I'm going to jump into that one to the south side. Just got to wait for it to happen. But Apple not looking good at all. Through 260 and continuing to go lower. Yikes, this is going to bode poorly for the market if Apple's going to have another one of those days. Oh, and silver. One last one for you. Silver, completely sideways action. You got a buyer here at 71. Until this makes some kind of an actual move that I could revert, I'm going to have to stay away from silver. That wasn't a big trade until much later in the session anyways. I mean, as everybody knows, silver was complete insanity, and it was the middle of the day, so you could be patient with that. Yeah, I might jump back into pins here if it can start putting in some lower highs, but you just saw it spike up, so no need to rush that trade.
Yeah, that AMAT's still kind of holding above that 375, so that breakout potentially coming in, but you can see the chop that it's doing, man. It's just it's about $1 to anywhere between $1, sometimes sub-$1, and then getting it up into $2 to $3 spreads at any given time. So a bit choppy for me. I got to definitely have more focus on this one, as it potentially does give us that breakout and that continuation through these fresh all-time highs. Market tailwind, it does not care about what the market is doing. The market is selling off here, both the ES and the Nasdaq, and AMAT printing some fresh highs at the same time. So bit of a miss on my part, Neil, and I'm looking at a shorter time frame chart. It held VWAP quite well. That 370 I was watching, that was quite interesting, and it held that 370 was probably, if I was paying much more closer attention to it, probably where I'm getting involved for a potential push as we hold higher highs and higher lows on a much shorter time frame there. But you know what? It is what it is. That 375 seems like it might be a little bit of a struggle before it can continue with any sort of a distinction. And yeah, look at ARM. ARM is pushing up pretty aggressively as of right now. NVIDIA with the strong selling coming in. Wow, that one is Is it the most overextended? No, it's Apple. Apple's still holding below this 260 as of right now. I do have that on the side of my chart, side of my screen here as well. But 259 halves, a little bit of a chip chop happening here on Apple. So we're not really getting that aggressive continuation that we saw yesterday. There goes the bid on AMAT. Let me pull up Apple here for you guys so we can take a look at this one on the main screen at the same time. Pull up the book as well. So you can see not as aggressive of selling that we saw from yesterday, but again, I'm still waiting. Maybe we get pops into VWAP, maybe we get pops that show some distinct selling coming right back in. But this 260 is going to be very interesting for me as we just chop around this area as of right now. If the market breaks down some of these lows, maybe that's the tailwind that I'm looking for to really get involved with this one. But 260 knocking on the door of that triple, quadruple bottom from yesterday and this pre-market on Apple potentially coming in. Softy to the downside. Let's see what else is happening. Yeah, NVIDIA is the one, man. NVIDIA, 185. Those sellers came in quite hot there on NVIDIA, trading at 184s right now. So 186s roughly were pre-market lows, and that breakdown is coming in quite nicely.
Yeah, the market's starting to come back in. Bit of a trend break here as IBIT, Bitcoin pressed into the highs. We're still under 68,000, 67.5 we're sitting at. ETH under 2,000 as well. So we're going to pull back into the volume weighted average price here. PINS is still trying to get higher, so going to stay away from that one at least for now. Apple's pressing that 260. So it is a chance. Like it just pressed into 260. There might be a chance to trade at this level anyway. So there's your topping tail candle off the 260 level. Now starting to come through 259. I'll see if I can sneak in and play this one under VWAP. But the only new position that I just showed you was getting into IBIT. I almost said Coinbase. Apologies there. And it takes them out in front of the volume weighted average price. And as I'm into the IBIT short, worth pointing out that Coinbase has completely lost the bid as well. Back underneath the 150 bucks. Sucks to be you, Coinbase, but it was a mixed report. Like I know it was bouncing in the morning, but it was a pretty mixed report for Coinbase. It wasn't all good. It felt like a bit of a trap breakout play there on Coin. So yeah, I don't like to see it go to the downside, but it did feel like a bit of a chase there for Coinbase.
Yeah, you can see the market's coming right in here, Neil, and we were just talking about that. If the market goes, let's see if Apple goes as well at the same time. But Apple holding up at that 259 halves as of right now, as both the Nasdaq and the ES come in to test some of these pre-market lows. And it's only about, I guess, 6 minutes into the open, 9:41. So just closely watching. Let me know in the chat what you guys are trading. What are you guys watching as well? Alphabet at the same time, almost at that 300 level, Neil. So 300 on Apple. We're coming in at, on Alphabet. So Google, 304s and some change trading on Alphabet as of right now. This DraftKings seems like it's kind of just chopping around this VWAP right now. Initial entry a little bit aggressive, but getting in and around VWAP, I like that a little bit better here for myself. Rivian to the downside, Pinterest still kind of chopping around, nothing too crazy. Held that 14 quite well, so not really too concerned about that one. And AMAT got slapped off of that 375, 367 halves trading on AMAT, trading now back below VWAP. Can we get back through open? Can we get back through opening range low? That's the question here on AMAT, because that, again, looking back at it, that is a beautiful reversion here and a failure to follow through that 375 pre-market, or it was after hours, so the reaction high from last night. So nice opportunities to say the least.
Well, we're starting to look flush city on the Nasdaq here. Just took out the fresh lows there. Nasdaq now down 0.7%. The ES took the lows down 0.6% as well, as it is not looking very good start to Friday the 13th. And I see 1320 Wolf just said the metals are rusting. That's okay. I like the pun. I'd hit the joke drums, but I'm not on that key because we've got obviously VWAP and then target pre-market lows here on IBIT. So just want to make sure we can actually press through. If we don't, oh, I didn't have my trail. Okay, thought I had my trail. I'm trailing it back right off this little very, very tight trailing stop here on that bad boy. Intel, I'm just going to go ahead and cancel my order here at the volume weighted average price. It obviously flushed without me, was able to get into Apple at the 260 level, but Intel, no dice. If we bounce, I'm still looking to fade this one at the volume weighted average price for now. And Rivian, no good reason I see yet to get in, but it is holding the 17. So got a bit of a pop at 1-to-1 and then stopped out at 1-to-1 on the other side of it. So, it is what it is. But I still think Rivian holding above 17. I'm just going to wait for the long. I don't see any good reason to be getting into it right now here on RIVN. All right, so Apple, reload that. It won't break 259, actually. So Apple, the 260, it's holding 259. So scalp inside of the range, then look for it to break out to the downside. Eventually, I was just looking up so I can see what's happening with IBIT. So IBIT, want to look for a re-entry short. We're going to hold Apple through 259 short. Intel's trying to pop. Still want to try to fade a pop there. And Rivian is a not yet long. Not yet. Still hasn't broken and lost this bottom. Still hasn't really lost the 17 level. So just not yet. And I see you in the chat after Star. AMD, you say is flying. Is that flying? It's bouncing nicely. I don't know about flying. I want to see, is anything actually breaking out tops right now? I'm seeing a lot of weakness.
So yeah, no, I'm looking around as well. Got stopped out of that DraftKings as we print the last quarter into 22s there. So I'm like, all right, cool. You kind of blasted through that VWAP. That's perfectly fine. Let's see. Let's wait and see. Opening range high was, let's get specific, at 87, 21.87. So we're kind of making a beeline for that. Maybe held offer or some sellers at 21.5. So when we break through that, we go about 30, 40 pennies past that into the high of 83. So continuing to watch DraftKings, but where is the next trade is what I'm asking right now. Apple's still chopping around that 260 here, Neil.
And it seems like higher lows though.
Yeah, Nvidia is catching a bit of a bounce here. So let's pull up the chart. Where is my other chart here? Okay, so yeah, boom. Let's take a look at Nvidia.
Good thing we got out of Bitcoin.
What's happening on Bitcoin? Yeah,
put a trailing stop back at that 38 off the pre-market low. It is now screaming back through the high. See, some days I'll look like an idiot when that happens because it'll go all the way down. It's like, but I got the trade that I wanted. Well, in other times, it actually bounces off a support level and you're lucky that you got out or happy. This does not feel like a reload situation to me. Big V-shaped recovery, fine, like the short on the curl initially, but I'm not feeling that on the way back in. Be patient with it. There might be a better opportunity as silver is falling all over itself as well. But before I get to silver, because it's clearly a super volatile open, what the heck is NM? Apple, higher lows all the way back in to this VWAP play. So I'm tightening the stop from VWAP to literally wick high, and I'm not reloading it. Right, so just a bit of a plan of action. Want to stay green on it, and don't like the fact that the market's trying to break higher, and it was putting higher lows into my reentry. So I might get back into this if I see the market fail the top, but just sort of take what we get early and run with it. We have a super chat to get to. If you could throw it up, Andre, I'm not on the right page. Lunch 911. You caught some sky puts. Thank you, everyone. Great look. But now the market is running upside. We're actually threatening to break out some of the highs as we speak. That, for me, what was that?
That was the Flintstones run. Yeah. I like that. That was very timely.
Okay, that's lost my train of thought. It was silver pulling back into VWAP, which, of course, if you're looking for the short, that can also mean ZLSL pulling for a long potential dip buy into the volume weighted average price. If I see this hold VWAP, I'd go for the long in silver, but there's plenty of time to be patient for that. Flintstones, man. I'm glad you got that reference.
Of course.
That show was way before your time, dude.
Was it? I used to watch it all the time. Is it? Oh, it's from the 1960s. Wow. Okay. I mean, I used to watch it. It was on Cartoon Network.
Of course.
And the Jetsons as well. I used to watch that. Courage the Cowardly Dog. That one was great as well. But I think that was a little bit after. Probably much after.
Like
Scooby-Doo. Of course.
That's legit.
Scooby-Doo is classic.
Look at you've seen
but
this bounce.
yeah.
I am so glad I got
these
out of
bounces
those
are
shorts.
crazy, man.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm watching.
Good thing we got out of those shorts. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
But AMAT though looking different.
Where is AMAT?
Below VWAP now.
That doesn't.
370 is holding.
Even silver's trying to press through VWAP. So I mean, early on, this is why you've got it. Sometimes you just do have to take the profit early. Excuse me, especially if you were thinking red. You have to. Like, this is the Nasdaq breaking through some highs here. I'm still going to track silver because it's at VWAP. And if it does turn around, that does give me a potential entry to get that short. But this might have just been the move. Sometimes that's how it is. IBIT continues to go. Intel gave no reason. See, this is the thing. Here, see that topping tail in VWAP? That's a reason to get short. When it comes in, it's just a line on a chart. And if you just say, well, it's a line on a chart or it's a support level, and I don't care what happens there, I'm just going to get short, that's not a good way to go about it. Sometimes you have to get out of Dodge and not fight something. Like Apple decided not to reload it in 260 that time. The higher lows were telling me the story. It can still set up another short. 100% it can set up another short for me. Intel might not, that's for sure. But silver's a different story. Anytime this has a strong trend, I'm just looking for the break of that trend. So you can do this little downtrend all you want, ZSL. I can wait you out, and then the second silver looks weak, I'm punching long this bad boy.
Yeah, definitely have to keep an eye on that on the prize, which is potentially silver here. But I'm also watching this Apple move, man. Apple, that 260 was very, very interesting to me, and we're still continuing to chop in and around this. So maybe we're holding some of these pre-market levels. This was a level that I was talking about earlier, so let's take a quick look at this one, 15-minute. Look at this, hold. Once again, pre-market hold. That support, is it turning into resistance? That's the question that I'm asking right now, Neil. Is this support turning into resistance here on Apple? Going down to a shorter time frame, you can see here, throw that VWAP on. We're holding VWAP quite nicely. VWAP sitting at 260.68. Sure, it's an area. It's not always just that flat 260 level, but if we get some confluence as well with something like a VWAP, I do like it even better, and we're coming right back in. Look at that, man. What a shake and bake, right? Drop down, rip right back up, push those highs, slam right back down. So that shake and bake is definitely happening, coming into full effect here as we start to print the second 15-minute candle of the day. About 9 minutes left to finish printing this one here, Neil. And yeah, interesting price action to say the least. NVIDIA getting slammed right back in here at the same time. So NVIDIA, you can see here, all the way up into VWAP. I was watching this one, pre-market highs as well, or pre-market lows as well, 186s. You can see here coming right back up into those levels and catching a bit of a sell. So resistances are coming into effect. Resistance.
Did you just say resistances?
Resistance?
Resistance coming to effect. Well, I'm trying to get this VWAP. We're back through on ZSL as it's back to the volume weighted average price. Kind of missed the last two punches, but I'm sitting at 248, 249, right in front of this prior low. So I get long in front of VWAP, give it to that prior bar low, and then Bob's your uncle after that. Intel goes all the way back up. There's a bit of a wick high. If I can see it hold that turn, we're going to get involved to the south side. Apple is now continuing to go back into the low, everybody. But that AMAT, I think this is a problem. Yeah, like if you tell me that the strongest tech earnings name is going to be giving it all back, it's hard to be very bullish in light of that. I just can't be. So for anyone that's somewhat confused, silver lost VWAP just here and is heading back underneath, right? So bounce and a reverse to the other way. That means ZSL. I'm looking for the long ZSL. So giving it to the prior bar low. We'll see if it can retrace. I don't think we will see a move like yesterday. If anything, sometimes the open is your best bet. So scalping into the high is definitely a part of this trade. So the high being 258. So it's effectively looking for that 10-cent range here. In this kind of stock, you risk 3 to 5 to try to make 5 to 10 is the way you go about it, oftentimes.
Yeah, let me know in the chat what you guys are trading. I'm kind of just have eyes on a few things. That Pinterest did hold that 14 level quite nicely at the same time. So PINS, you can see here pulls into that 14, got to a low of 1384. I did like the break, but that doesn't come in. We catch a bit of a bid back into some of these pre-market levels. So let's see if this downtrend that we've been holding since the pre-market session, let's see if that kind of continues to hold. Just kind of drawing a bit of a trend line here. You can see, you know, it already kind of started to chop it up in the pre-market session, but we just drop some trend there. You can see we're starting to break that. We've already broken back above this anchored VWAP as well, so maybe some confluence happening here. We got some breaking news with the Dara.
Here in BABA, Alibaba, some of these other Chinese ADRs on watch, I'm seeing reports that the U.S. has removed the document that listed firms linked to the Chinese military. According to the Federal Register, a U.S. agency requested withdrawal of the document. Back to you.
Yeah, look, Intel's actually going much higher. Almost the entire move back here on Alibaba as the V-shaped recovery is on. Sometimes with the news, like the trade is, that's why you got to be here, right? Like we had this story pretty much right away. That's what it's about, TraderTV.Live, and Adair is always all over it because I think really you just had to have that in the pre-market. It made the low on that story. Intel, what it's doing right now is blowing up. So it's almost at 47. It's actually starting to catch a very heavy bid. AMD, see, doing nothing. NVIDIA, still underneath the lows and not looking very good. Micron, still trending down and not looking very good. So most of the chip names are looking incredibly weak with the exception of Intel. Very odd one today, but is what it is. Sometimes Intel's gonna do its own thing. And I will leave it alone till it gets to 47 and can break the trend. I was patient about it. When it dipped into 47 from 50 the other day, we'll be patient about it as it goes from 45 on the way up. Still not completely believing in that one. So we're still looking for our first fill here in ZSL, just being, it has to start pressing into this high, another couple of cents, and we'll start getting out of that bad boy. Silver starting to slide back in.
Yeah, silver's been a bit of a choppy one. I think a lot of people talking about that reversion that did come in, and we were looking at it this morning, Neil. Roughly about, I would say, close to, if not in and around that 40 to 50% of that leg from that breakout that we had, $50 all the way up to 100. We pull back in pretty decently at the same time as well. So let's take a look at that silver chart. Let's actually go just to a silver future so we can kind of capture the whole chart, the proper price action here. So we'll go straight to a weekly, and you can see here, take off some of that VWAP. We don't need that on the weekly here. Yeah, what a beautiful, beautiful move. Top wick, no, that's a line that I had drawn in. Just hide that for now. I was like, there's no way we got all the way up to 180s. So, okay, so yeah, 121.64. So this was the breakout that I'm talking about right here, coming in November of 2025. And that was a very, very strong push, about 115% off of some of those highs there. And then, yeah, the pullback as well, pulling back roughly about 47%. So roughly about a 50% pullback if you count it from this breakout. So that's $50, $55 all the way up to 121, and we're pulling back into 70, 75s. We actually dropped down to 64s, almost 65s there prior week. So great moves here, but on a much higher time frame on silver, and we saw that weakness coming in right here. When was this? January, at the end, coming into the end of January, we hit those 121s. Everybody was talking about silver. People who just were never involved in commodities, never involved in precious metals. I heard conversations from them as well, just talking about silver. And guess what? You know, we were talking about this as well. That may mark the top. Well, and as of right now, yeah, oftentimes it does. And you can see here that definitely marking a little bit of the top. And we saw a similar kind of action on Bitcoin because everyone was like, oh, it's back at 100. It's, it's up through 100, 125.
Like some altcoin right? that I've never even heard of.
Same thing.
And like, I was like, yeah, that's not a good sign. It never really, ultimately, it never really is. But it's very anecdotal. Does this time feel different? I think is a question for Bitcoin that a lot of people are going to be asking. But I think what's going on right now, just to show you guys in the market, it doesn't look that constructive if you're thinking about that long side of the trade. So I'm still looking for my Intel entry to the south side. We've wicked the top. We're making with the bodies, we're making lower highs here, as you can see, but it's still a chop chop fest on the 15-minute. We'll get some clarity after a second 15-minute candle, but it is looking structurally like we're still favoring a short. So as I said, Intel, here's a trend break potentially happening, and we'll try to jump into it off of, it went right to 47. So it gets to the 47 level, now looking like it wants to turn around here. Rivian's completely dead. At least silver is still sliding, but not going crazy. The biggest moves in silver are always
overnight, yeah.
No, well, even intraday, I find like the biggest moves in silver tend to be well after like 10 to 10:30, and then if it doesn't do it then you're talking about like somewhere in the midday as well. It doesn't mean you don't have volatility at all. It's just that sometimes you have to be very patient with it. Nick Dubs, thank you for the super chat. Throw it up, Andre, if you can, because it's thoughts about CRISPR. Shot plays right now, trust me, I love the biogenomics. I think what AI can do, I think what AI can do in this industry is unbelievable, and you start to see some serious breakthroughs happening. That being said, it falls into that category, ain't making no money yet, and you get beat up because of it, and that's exactly what happened here. Lost to 50, lost to 200. Actually, this is looking pretty solid here for a reversal because we just bounced off the 48.5. I already own the stock, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm buying any more of it. So this is one that I own, but it is breaking this downtrend with a hold of 50 today. So kind of a wick bottom and liquidity grab, although note the volume not bigger than normal. I'd call that like a B level liquidity grab under 48 because it didn't have the accompanying volume spike. But I like this hold of 50 if it can do it. But I think this is a play for what AI can do for the space, and they're poised to make some breakthroughs in the next couple of years. That's my 2 cents. Jumping right back over to the market, we have not moved even a little bit. Intel still hasn't given me the entry there. We'll double check how Apple is doing. There's that topping tail. Didn't give a clean entry back through VWAP, as you could clearly see, and it's not really presenting itself with VWAP again. So we're able to do something with the 260, and I'll wait for that price to try to jump into Apple a second time.
Yeah, this AMAT came all the way right back in to some of these pre-market lows. So back through opening range lows. You can see here, 360 was this pre-market low. We're coming into that pretty quickly as well at trading at 361.60s as of right now. So just a spread away from that 360. But let's see what's happening now with Hedera.
Take a look at this S&P 500. Here's the 15-minute chart. As you can see, pretty choppy here. We already have an intraday low of around 677, intraday high of around 683. So that's a roughly 6-point range so early in the day for the SPY. We'll take a look at the Nasdaq, which likely looks very similar. Yeah, so Nasdaq, same deal here, low of around 596, intraday high of around 602, 603. So once again, 6 to 7 point spread intraday thus far in terms of this range. Lots to talk about. We did have CPI coming out this morning. We had core CPI in line with estimates, and then CPI month-over-month and year-over-year non-core. Both those prints coming in 0.1% below estimates. But the other theme of today, without a doubt, has to be earnings. One of these names mentioned quite a lot here by Neil and Obi, but it's worth mentioning the report again is AMAT. This is Applied Materials, beating EPS and sales estimates for Q1 2026 and their Q2 guidance, well above estimates for both metrics. Coinbase, another earnings name, but also on watch with the ongoing crypto-related trends. So Coinbase did come out here and miss sales, but they beat on adjusted EPS for Q4 2025. I have a lot of, visuals here that are going to come out throughout the day on COIN, on different metrics. So on X at TTV Research. So if this report is something you're interested in, rest assured there will be lots of content for that. Other earnings reports on watch today include Expedia, Airbnb, Roku, Moderna, CCJ. Like, there's really no shortage of earnings to be aware of. And last but not least, not an earnings name, but certainly languishing today, once again, unfortunately, is Apple. AAPL. There was this positive story from today with Apple scoring a legal victory with a jury rejecting Optus Wireless's 4G patent claims. But then, of course, you have from yesterday news about Apple CEO Tim Cook receiving a letter from the chairman of the FTC with regards to potential political bias in their Apple News coverage. And then if you go back here to Wednesday, Bloomberg reporting that there could be some further delays with their Siri update. Tons of stories today, without a doubt. So stick with us all day here at Trader TV Live. In the meantime, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. We're going to go back to Obi and Neil.
Thank you very much, Dara.
You already said it.
Oh,
I was
okay.
going to hit.
You're gonna hit. Yeah, no, I saw you reaching for the key there. Yes, thank you very much. There. We didn't quite get to that 360 just yet, but kind of chopping around back below VWAP again was really nice here as we held that 370. That did show us a little bit of significance there, coming in off of the opening drive all the way up to 375s. False break that 375, absolutely beautiful, and then pulls right back into opening range lows. So AMAT. Great trading both ways, I'd say, on that one. Pinterest, let's just go over this one here as well. Held that 14 quite well. It was
It's
kind of committed. Yeah, it is SSR. I think a few of these names are definitely.
No, I'm literally
SSR.
just trying to punch short.
Oh, you were trying to punch in. Yeah. No, you know what I realized? Some of these stocks off of the open, if they're kind of doing a little bit on both sides, you can actually punch in, and there's a lot of chop in between that an uptick will get you in, even though it looks like it's selling off, which is quite a nice. It's a nice thing, because if I want something, I'm gonna punch into it, and there's maybe not always enough time to post.
That just means for anyone that doesn't know, it's just a trader term for removing liquidity, right? So it means that you're trying to hit the bid to go short, or you're trying to hit the offer to go long. We just call it punching in. I don't know. There's other firms that would say other things. But anyways, that's what we mean by it. So trend break on Pinterest, it got to 15. So I really liked it at two prices, which was the 14 breakdown, which did hold the line. Then it upward trended into 15. So jump short 15, looking for the retracement into, you probably guessed it by now, the volume weighted average price. As well, Intel still holding trend up. The market's still doing this weird dance where it's not doing much. We're just going back and forth off VWAP. In the grand scheme of things, this is yesterday, this is the overnight, this is the open. We're not doing anything. So you've got to wait for things to press and get to a key price level or give you some kind of an actual entry. So we just pressed 17 again without really taking out any of these higher lows on Intel. Pinterest, yes, Pinterest just set up that short, so I am into it, but I haven't seen that entry point yet over here in Intel. It is starting to come. Wow, okay, the sell just really started to come. I just got to hit on the bit of pins, and it's really starting to accelerate here in INTC. Whoa. This could be the turn.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these top wicks on the 15-minute here, Neil. You can see every 15 minutes since about where's my mouse? Since about 7:30, so that would make this around 8:30. Every little pop, even so, that was the CPI move, right? So around 8:30, every pop into some of these levels. Look at these top wicks on the 15-minute candles. Boom, selling. Even with that strong wipe that we had on the second 15-minute candle, that 9:45, we can see here that got sold off just as aggressively at the same time here on these markets. You can see 24/700s coming in here on the Nasdaq as well. Very similar pattern happening here on the Nasdaq. So a lot of chop within that opening range, so I'm going to stay a little bit light and tight and listen until that range can break. What's up, Adara?
Be aware here, guys. Seeing some news reports here from Wall Street Journal. Anthropic reportedly adding a new board member as it eyes a potential IPO. Now, said board member is Chris Liddell. He is a former Microsoft and General Motors executive. He's going to be in the board of directors of Anthropic. Now, why this is significant is because Chris Liddell helped to take General Motors public, is what I'm seeing here. Back to you.
Okay.
Thank you very much there, Adara. As always, keeping us abreast of any news. By the way, Apple is still doing a dance. We finally got into Intel as we'll play it off that prior high here, which is about 47, but Apple's still languishing under that $26 level. So I want to try to respect it for the breakdown, but it hasn't come into VWAP to get me that short. One more time, I was able to get some out of pins, but not the second fill. We still hold on to 3/4 of that one. Intel's really starting to charge into the upside here. So this might actually take out that top. Short at the 7, looking to get it out. Not necessarily 47. I like to go with the lower high when it's breaking a trend like this and not give it to the high. I feel like if it breaks this in the mid-90s, it's probably breaking 47, and you're just risking an extra 10 cents for apparently no reason. I'm not yet at the point where I want to play back into Bitcoin, but I am monitoring this. It's put in a double top, and I like the 38.5 still, which is where we dropped off in yesterday's trade. It's starting to put in this double top. If I see a lower high I can work with, I would re-enter that trade. But I don't mind being one and done on a stock. Like, I feel like if you get like a clean move, presses into the low, that's fine. Like, that can be it. And if it never sets up again, it never sets up again, and fair enough. I can live with that.
I think a few of you talking about BE in the chat being like, oh, it's just straight up pumping. Well, I don't know. It's not doing a crazy amount of volume, is it? Relative volume, not really there. But yeah, sure, it's breaking out of that 140 level as of right now, but not really main thing on my watch. There's a lot of other things that are very much more in play, I'd say, than Bloom Energy. But good luck to anybody who is trading this. I think there are a few people in the chat that keep calling out BE here. Held that VWAP.
It's been popular since earnings.
Has it been? How long ago was earnings? I think, okay, so last Friday, February 6th. Okay, interesting. So like about a week off, but you can see we've just been trading in a range since then. So not really anything too crazy happening here. On Bloom Energy, let's see what else is happening here. Coinbase back at its highs here. So that bid came in quite nicely and pushing even higher. Dipped down to, what was this, 148. So, okay, interesting. We saw that we kind of established in the pre-market that we're holding above this after hours high range, and we held that strong bid coming into the open. That consolidation from about 8:30, post CPI consolidation, gets broken down. I guess that was quite nice. If you took that back through 150, 150 gives you all the way down to 146s, but a bid showing up once again. Guess where, Neil? Anchored VWAP right there. Sure, it's not that clean, but it's definitely there. And that reversal coming in potentially right back through that 150, and we're getting 158s as of right now on Coinbase. So shout out to anybody who had this reversion. I'm definitely missing out on this. Hood asking the Omega Star. Let's take a quick look at Hood here and see what's good. Okay, Hood kind of similar. Again, Coinbase. Both of them brokers. Coinbase may be more crypto related than Hood for sure, but yeah, 74s was that pre-market high, opening range high, just shy of 73 halves. So 73, let's get specific, 73.32s was that opening range high on my book here. So continuation, strong bid happening here on Robinhood and Coinbase as well. You can see that happening here on the market. Let's see if the market can finally get past some of these levels. We can see aggressive bid coming into the fresh hour here, 10:10 as of right now, and we're pulling right back in to these areas where the past, let's say, about 5 to 6 15-minute candles have found some sort of resistance. So 24.8s here on the Nasdaq. Bit of a chop, 24.850s, 60s. I'm seeing here as the ultimate high of those past 15-minute candles, and we'll see. We'll wait and see. Can we finally break that? Is it Bitcoin that's catching the bid?
Bitcoin through 68,000, ETH through 2,000 as well. There it is. Through 2,000 as well. We're now starting to blast back up into market highs. If it's already broken the high, then I'm staying away from it. If it hasn't, then you got to respect it to try to get back in. So I'm going to look at Pinterest because that's right back up at the top. But Intel did blow through that top. It was thankfully one quick little scalp. But once it took out that lower high, I'm not giving it in to the prior. And again, it's just a way to save yourself a little bit of money, I think, is if I'm taking a reversion, give it to this wick. If it breaks that topping wick, you're just losing a little bit extra for, in my opinion, no reason. That sort of is what it is. Apple, on the other hand, if we're talking about the market at the highs, Nasdaq pushing, trying to hold green, the ES is green. Apple with the story, look, I don't care whether you think that this FTC story is a big deal or not, or maybe even the Siri update delay, whichever one. At this point, it's relatively weak, and they're selling Apple, and it can't seem to hold that 260. That's where the bottom was, double bottom there yesterday. So if we can't participate and push through, that's another name that has not, to me, given up the short. Like most of the other shorts were like right away at the open, make what you can, and we're blasting higher, except for Apple. It's still holding lower highs, still holding under VWAP, and is not looking too good. And another name, which is also shockingly enough in this regard, without a particular reason why, would be NVIDIA, down 1.8% here. So as we're going back into the high of the day, NVIDIA is also holding a lot of weakness around it. Apple's more interesting to me, but I'm curious as to see why NVIDIA is not doing well.
Yeah, I think NVIDIA, we kind of talked about it, like the toppy action on NVIDIA over the past couple of months.
That was above 190, though.
Yeah, the 192s, right?
Yeah, we're at 184 now.
So we tried to get through that 192 multiple times and basically couldn't get through that area, 192, 193 roughly. Okay, so NVIDIA here. So this is what I'm talking about. Neil and I have had this conversation. Okay, DraftKings, I see you. Interesting, the participation that's happening on this one here, but it is what it is. I can definitely get back to that one later. Let's take a quick look at NVIDIA here, hourly. So boom. Get rid of all of this. So this was the action right here. This is the action that I'm interested in. You can see here over and over again over the past few months, Neil. These were highs in January. These were highs once again at the end of January as well. 192, cannot get through, cannot get through, cannot get through, and try so many times. And then yesterday we break below this 188. Pre-market coming in, we're consolidating underneath this consolidation, this multi-day consolidation, this hold of that 188 level for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Every time we got up there, we were sold off pretty aggressively. Coming in today, nice little continuation. Again, maybe off of CPI. Sure, CPI might be adding a little bit of fuel, but regardless of whatever, fundamental reasons there may be, we're holding underneath some of these levels, which we're attempting to hold over the past few days and pulling right back into some prior levels here as well. So yeah, that pre-market low might have definitely been the area to get in. 186 has kind of called that out coming in off of the open, but didn't really participate or get involved on the retest at VWAP, which I think was the place to get in. But definitely a lot of weakness here on NVIDIA happening. Wow, DraftKings right back into VWAP.
Not just
GG's,
them.
Man.
Rivian's up 19%, and this is now the second time it's pressed, third time it's pressed in. First highs, lower high. I had it in front of VWAP, kind of a flat trade, unfortunately. Get half out top, stop out at 1-to-1. But now we have a trend break potential here for Rivian. So it's starting to look a little bit, it's a different setup. Forget about the volume weighted average price. It's just you've got distinct lower highs. The market's trying to be strong, but it still has to break above. I like the fact that it's the $17 area that we'll still be working with because that was a big level on Rivian. And remember, the thing about Rivian, it's not like the quarter was fantastic. They're still not making money. It was all about the fact that they lost less than expected and they're losing at a 40%, 35 to 40% improvement on how much they're losing per vehicle, which I know doesn't sound all that impressive because they're still losing, 5 figures per vehicle sold, but it's progress. And by the time they completely turn it around, it'll be too late. So looking for this to break the trend line, then we'll try to pop it along the same way this was a trend reverse in pins. I want to look for the trend reverse long in Rivian. We need to go over to the desk. Adara's got something for us.
What I have here is a nice little bounce in some of these steel and aluminum names, including Cleveland Cliffs. I had to restart my computer, so I am unfortunately like a minute or two late to this story. But Peter Navarro, who is, of course, one of Trump's trade advisors, he is on, I think, CNBC right now, and he's saying that there are no exclusions and no exemptions when it comes to tariffs. So basically, it looks like he's kind of trying to downplay and or deny some of these reports that we're going to get some modifications to these tariffs on steel and aluminum. So right now it looks like CLF at least seeming to like that story. If I get more details, I will let you know. Back to you.
Thank you very much.
It's all about that aluminium.
Because
isn't that the way you're supposed to say it?
I don't know.
We were told that once a few years ago.
Really?
Like that's the proper. No, it's like the proper English way. You ever heard like a British person say?
Yeah, of course they say aluminium.
That's how they say it. I don't know where the
British
pronunciation. That's how British people say it.
Yeah.
Weird to me. We say it what I think is the normal way. People were honest in the chat a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
The first time. So just a quick little update. We're still chop fest in the overall market. And I don't know what to tell you guys. There's no free fall Friday. There's no breakout Friday. The Nasdaq is as flat as can be. We'll go 0.25% down. We'll go 0.2% to the upside. There's been no distinct direction just yet. So being patient and waiting for some kind of a big setup, or find something which is going to be trending. I'm still in just Pinterest, got my bids into the volume weighted average price, as I said, and we're just trying to wait for Rivian to do something good. And let us know in the chat what you guys are watching. I saw SoFi get thrown in there. I want to thank everybody, first of all, A, for being here, B, for making sure that you type in $ with your tickers, because that's a big one. If you're in the chat, great, $ whatever ticker you're interested in. But more importantly, if you're not in the chat, you need to be a subscriber to be in the chat. So hit the like, hit the subscribe button, jump in there, converse. We'll look at Coinbase, that's number 1, Robinhood. Hey, DVLT's back in there. It's not at $1 yet. It'll get a little more spicy when it is. Apple, AMD, all names we've looked at. Palantir, we have not. Tesla, we have not. We got Corsair, you were mentioning there, Obi. Yep. SNDK, SoFi. There's one stock in here I am not familiar with. I do not know what MLEC is. I'm going to make an assumption that is a small capper because it's up 73%. So that's my spider sense telling me that if it's up 73%, it is a random small capper that nobody's heard of. And I feel like I am vindicated when I look at this chart. Be careful with this. Luis talks about this when he comes on, and so does Sharif. If you make your pre-market, if you make your high in the pre-market and fail and stair step down, sometimes you do not get back. And a lot of times, short sellers will look for that VWAP short once they're in control, and sometimes can stay in control pretty much the entirety of the day. So just be really, really careful with small cappers like this underneath VWAP.
Yeah, I think, I'm just pulling up the chart here. Molec, bio, or science there. Maybe it's a play on words for molecular, perhaps there. But $11, $12. Yeah, I think so. Mulek with the 2 O's there. MDRN Game Dev. Thank you very much for the super chat there. Sideways equals down due to inflation. I have no idea. Maybe, perhaps, but we're definitely not seeing a strong bid in the market this week. Down due to inflation, I don't know. That's potentially way above my pay grade there. But
if we're looking at if you're day trading, it means nothing.
Exactly.
Looking at the long term, of course. Yeah. If your assets are not performing and we have inflation, that's not going to be a good thing, clearly. But the fact that the Nasdaq is sideways for 45 minutes this morning, probably not that big of a deal. But it's a weird one because after yesterday, I was expecting a lot more volatility than what we're seeing here, Obi. So it does mean you do not want to overtrade. I feel like some of the early trades were like you had to quickly take your profit if you could. Bitcoin was an example of that. But if we're not going to blow out these tops, I can't sit here and tell you that the best opportunity is not going to be a little bit later on in the session. And if you remember, like the Nasdaq did it early, but silver is what caused the big late dump. Like when the afternoon dump happened, it was complete insanity. Starting with silver, right? So it was actually the metals that started going first, and then everything else just sort of followed. All right, Rivian's trying to do it again. It has not been able to close above the trend line. It tested, no close above, so no entry. Same story over in pins, which I'm still sitting in to VWAP, so that's just kind of gliding down to plan. Hasn't broken the prior bar high, so it looks like we might actually get this one into the volume weighted average price to plan here on pins. But nothing else going too crazy. I see Bart in the chat saying, is it Bart? I think it's Bart. Nvidia's still downward trending into a flat bottom. Yeah, the market's kind of gliding toward the high, and you're kind of bear flagging here on Nvidia. So this chip name is still looking weak. Pretty much all of them are, with the exception of Intel. Time to go to Adara. It's 10:20. Time to look at Melk or Mlek, MLEC, and some small cappers, I guess. That is a weird ticker.
Yeah.
That stock is on here, Neil, but it's not our first one we're going to talk about because we're going to start here with Corsair, CRSR. Corsair Gaming here beating EPS and sales nicely for both metrics, guiding fiscal 2026 sales well above estimates, well below estimates actually, so weaker than expected guidance, but better than expected current quarter sales. Clearly, guidance is not mattering here to investors because CRSR keeps pushing higher. Here's RIME Algorithm Holdings. No rhyme or reason for this one to be moving like this today. Kind of choppy today, but yesterday we did have some news in the morning. The company's semi-cap platform enabling their clients' internal operations to scale freight volume by 300 to 400%. Last but not least, here's the MELC that was just mentioned. That's Moolec Sciences. They announced this morning that one of their subsidiary had data from crushing process of their U.S. GLASO1, which confirmed 45% or so gamma linolenic acid concentration. So positive news here for MLEC, more specifically for one of their subsidiaries. So again, it's going to be MLEC, that's going to be RIME, and CRSR. That's your small cap recap. Back to the bigger stocks with Neil and Obi.
One you were looking at was Corsair.
Yeah, Corsair. I was watching this one right here as well, right before we pass it to Adara. Yeah, some really good reaction on its earnings. Held that $7 level, and I think MF Dangerous in the chat was mentioning it as well. Very strong move on Corsair. Now, a big conversation with this stock was that, hey, all the chip names are running. It's Micron that's running. It's SNDK that's running. Some of these memory names like Western Digital and I don't know if Seagate was one of them as well, potentially. But all of these are running. Why is Corsair not running? Guess what? They don't make the chips. They just brand the chips. That's the reason why. And they not only are they only a chip retailer or seller, they do a lot of other peripherals as well. They do PCs, pre-built. They do peripherals as well, keyboards and mice. I love their products. Like a lot of my stuff is Corsair. But when it comes to memory, it's just I'm pretty sure they take one of SNDK or MU's chips and they just slap their branding on it and sell it as a Corsair memory, like DDR5s.
Yeah, and that's why
That's why you didn't really see that kind of reaction here. But I didn't really look into this earnings report as much. But again, going to a higher time frame on this one, you can see it did not catch the same kind of tailwind that some of the actual memory names did. In fact, it actually sold off even further until this earnings report as of right now. So this trend break, very interesting to me. Let's see if we can kind of gap and push and stay above some of these levels. I remember the IPO on this one, Neil. I was just like, because I really liked it, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm definitely getting involved, and it was quite nice. You can see here off of the IPO, we didn't catch a big strong move, but the backside was even more beautiful, right? You can see strong pops and straight bleed all the way back down, but the initial move was, I think, where the trade was if you really like the brand.
Freezing.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
Obi's always fond of telling you on a trade that he likes the backside. Yeah. And it's always important to remember that just simply means, when you're catching the turn in direction.
Yeah.
And not the
right side of the V.
Mean when you say that.
Yeah.
Which you insinuate heavily often, Obi. Often
you have to be. So here's the thing: when it comes to trading, you gotta like something, and you gotta be like, this is what I like to do. This is how I like to trade, and this is what I want to get involved with. And the backside is definitely one of those.
Here's how I would say it. I would say that if I'm looking for a long in a stock that is going down, I will wait for it to make a bottom, break a trend, make a higher low, do something that indicates that the sellers are no longer in control, and then go long. Now, Obi would just say I like the backside.
Yeah, because that's a whole paragraph versus you got to be efficient.
Yeah, but I'm not going to...
Left side, right side, front side, back side.
I keep it clean. I have a daughter. I try to keep it clean. That's just how I roll.
I'm just looking for that clean price action, man. I find cleanliness in efficiency when it comes to language, right? It's just like I can say like 10,000 words and really mean one thing, or I can say a sentence and just be like, I'm getting my point across. I don't know.
Let's see what is said on the super chat from Leroy Chandler. Okay, so first of all, extra points if you change your screen name to Leroy Jenkins.
Yes.
Have to know when to sit out. Remember this. I would rather be on the side with cash, wishing I was in, than be wishing I was out. I think that makes sense on like a lot of not just from like if you don't see any trades, you don't have to heavily day trade, wait for a setup. But that's also true. Like you could be a swing trader, you could be an investor. Sometimes you might say, this part of my portfolio that's in energy 6 months ago, well, I've sold out most of it. I'm waiting for an opportunity to get back in. There is something to be said about that, like rotating in and out. And then also with trades, waiting for something to definitively set up and give you a reason to make that trade. What I don't like about this entry is I typically want to be in on the second candle. There's your trend break. Like I should be long in here, 10 cents better at 88 instead of 98 where I actually got filled. So that's actually not a good entry. It's a little tight to the volume weighted average price. So my stop is going to end up tight here right underneath the 80. And we'll give it a little bit of room, but I'm not going to reload it yet on Rivian. Just a little bit of slippage on the way in to that trade. Pins, as the market continues to go, by the way, Pins is slowly sliding back into VWAP. So this trend break gets you to the volume weighted average price in just a couple of ticks. But it's this Nasdaq that's starting to pick up. So you got distinct higher highs, higher lows, higher lows, not higher highs, going into this flat top as we try to break out the top here. So strong moves now. That's one of the reasons I wanted to get back into one of the long ideas, especially holding 17, that Rivian. But unfortunately, I should say fortunately, I mean, Apple, it's doing the same thing as before. Unfortunately, probably was right. It just can't seem to hold too much above 260. It's back above 260. And this was the lows from yesterday. Remember, the worst day Apple has had in almost a full calendar year. I think it's like 9 or 10 months. And it's barely even able to break through yesterday's lows. Not going to be able, I don't think we can sustain that much through on the future. Like the Nasdaq's going to try to press 25K. Can it actually do that without Apple? I'm a little bit skeptical if Apple doesn't participate in this move, Obi.
Yeah, no, I think Apple. We saw the relative weakness on when the market was kind of selling off. We saw that late reaction coming in over the past couple of days, and even on some of the uptrends that we've had last year, Apple was kind of, much slower. So I think when it comes to volatility, Apple was definitely the name that people probably, gravitated towards. For a sense of safety being away from that volatility, but it's days like yesterday that can definitely cause a little bit of panic there, right? So I think Apple is going to be very interesting as we push higher. There we go here on the Nasdaq and the ES, finally taking out some of these highs. Now the question becomes, Neil, can we sustain? There's only 9 seconds left to finish printing this 15-minute bar, and it seems like we might be finally able to close a little bit higher here as we push more and more towards some of these levels. So keeping a close eye here on this market as this open of this 15-minute candle comes in. And here is my alarm for 10:30.
That's my wife's alarm.
Oh, I mean, it's just a classic Samsung
I think it's
thing.
literally like the default.
The default alarm, yeah.
Why do
exactly.
you have an alarm going off at 10:30?
I have no idea. I think I switched up a bunch of alarms yesterday. Again, I've been staying up relatively late trading Blue Ocean.
You know what the correct answer was? You had an alarm for 69,000 on Bitcoin, which just got tagged. That's what his alarm was. Forget about whatever Obi says the alarm was for. Bitcoin just hit 69. It is in full-on squeeze mode. Talk about being lucky we got out at the bottom because I was looking short today on Bitcoin. That's got to keep it real, and we are absolutely blowing it out to the upside. My guess is BM&R is also... Yeah, look at this. BM&R, go Tom Lee's probably happy today that it's up 8% and continuing to trend higher. So you are seeing a big move. Big move in crypto relative to the move we're seeing in the Nasdaq and ES. Also breaking out through the highs is the overall market, but a bigger move happening in crypto. That's why you had the alarm there, Obi. But we had another alarm, and that was to go to Adara at the desk, I believe.
Just be aware here, Supreme Court saying the next opinion day is going to be February 20th. Now, that's not confirmed to be tariffs. But if so, just so you guys know, we could potentially get the tariff announcement on February 20th, but they're also setting opinion dates on February 24th and 25th. So somewhere within those 5 days, we could potentially, or that 5-day range, so 3 days total, 20th, 24th, and 25th, we could potentially get the tariff opinion. Back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much there, Adara. Obviously, you're starting to see some serious acceleration. We just talked about crypto. Coinbase is up 16%. Sometimes it could just be that you've hit the bottom and it doesn't matter, the selling is exhausted. Triple bottom on the daily here for Coin. We were sitting around in the aftermarket show and it was like AMAT blowout, up almost double digits. We had Rivian going absolutely ham in the aftermarket. You had Pinterest, unfortunately, going to the downside. And the other way, you had Airbnb. There were a lot of big movers. And Coinbase seemed like a bit of a nothing burger. It's like we dipped, and then we just sort of held. And then nothing was happening until after we had finished, and they got in the call. But all of a sudden, you're getting this like relief rally. Maybe you're going to have some short sellers that are covering here. I think that's going to be a part of it. But the other side of it is a lot of these names pull back so far. You were off 65% from the highs on Coinbase. Robinhood, which is blasting up 8%. This is a stock that was cut more than in half off of its highs. We already know what happened to Bitcoin. That was able to catch a bit of a bid at 60. That had pulled back over 50%, got cut by over 50%. But look at this Robinhood move as well. And one of the best things about Robinhood, this is a straight up double bottom. As clean as you like, yesterday's low, hold that double bottom. Tempering expectations here, you have yet to even fill in the gap with Robinhood. So there's a big difference between what Coinbase is doing, which is blowing through yesterday's highs and making a charge at last week's, or I guess it would be like midweek tops here, at that 168, and what Robinhood is trying to do, where it is just trying to fill in this first gap. Obviously, different stories. They reported at different times. But in this midst of this strength, you got to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff here. Yeah, starting to see this market starting to come back in here.
Oh, yeah.
We get to 25,000 on the Nasdaq. I think that's a good turn point.
I mean, we're making a straight beeline for that right now, Neil. We talked about that area that had held as a bit of a resistance on the 15-minute chart here for consecutive bars. Let's get specific. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars in a row since that CPI print. Resistance at 6860s on the ES. Resistance at 24,800s on the Nasdaq. We finally catch a bid and close above all of those levels, both here on the ES and Nasdaq. And guess what happens on the next 15-minute candle? We're experiencing it right now. Straight beeline up. Nice little breakout of that level coming into fruition here. And you can see I'm watching this NVIDIA here at the same time. NVIDIA held that 182-day low and now curling back towards this VWAP, actually trading above it now. Let's see if more of the same is what we're going to get here. Aggressive sellers off of VWAP off of the open. Aggressive sellers once again at 948. When we do break VWAP and attempt to push in, but guess what? Support and resistance coming in as maybe a stronger level here. It's just saying, you know, sometimes VWAP means something, sometimes horizontal support and resistance just means a lot more. Pre-market lows coming in here at 186s and flushing back down. Let's see if what that 186 has in store for us. If this market continues to push up even higher, let's see if that continuation happens here on NVIDIA. But when it comes to some of the rest of the Mag 7s here, Neil, Microsoft was the one that I was talking about, where higher time frame, this one gave us a little bit of trouble. You can see here on the weekly, let me take all that off. You can see here on the weekly, you know, some people call it cat ears, some people call it devil's horns, whatever you want to call it. 550, failure to follow through, strong wicking action on the weekly, aggressive bids all the way up here from April. This was that April bid that took us almost 61% I have here, 61.39% from the lows to the highs. We attempt to push that level once again coming into October of last year. And since then, Neil, we've been absolutely taking it to the woodshed here, 30% down almost from those highs. So talk about a textbook double top, a textbook break of trend, and a textbook chart to study confluence, where you have a break of trend, you have a failure to follow through, double top rejection, consolidation breakdown, consolidating underneath prior levels, breaking down with a stair step, pulling back into prior consolidation levels as well, with increasing volume. So Softy has been absolutely beautiful when it comes to a short. So shout out to my people who swing that short.
We've got a super chat here from Fridman, 1992. So I actually don't know what currency that is. Not that it matters, but it would tell us maybe where you are located. And can we analyze NBIS? Yes, we can. That's the first answer. We can always look at the chart. I haven't looked at it today. We did look at this, I believe, on Wednesday last. But before we do, just want to give you guys an update on the trades. Again, it's the same thing in Rivian. We press, get into VWAP, and then the tighter stop to normal. A lot of times I'd give it to the prior bar, but remember I said it was a bit of a chase because I didn't have my entry in here. So give it to this tight if I'm entering on the second bar. If we cannot hold this trend up, back in, then I jump out, right? Like I have pretty strict rules about these trades, so once we broke down, it's like an easy out for me there. Pins is still doing the same thing and looking fine. Looks like it does want view up. Doesn't really, Pinterest is so bad, it doesn't care what the market is doing at this point. If it's going down, it's just going down. NBIS was not doing this the last time I looked at it, and I believe I think the last time we talked about this, we were contemplating, it was a 200 period hold on NBIS. So that's step one. That's already happened. What I see immediately, and I'm just going to visualize it here, this is exactly what I see right now. It's got a very clean trend line off the top. Now remember, when you're looking at a daily chart for a trend line break, like I'll draw trend lines, and when it breaks on a 3-minute chart, you just jump into position. If your trend is on a daily, then guess what? It actually has to close above today. And for a lot of traders, myself included, it would need to open up there holding that on Monday, or the market's closed on Monday. On Tuesday is what it would have to be. So you want if your trend line, if your reason, your indicator is on a daily chart, then your strategy around it should be something to do with a daily entry, or if it's a weekly chart, same kind of thing. Like you want confirmation at the end of the day today on Tuesday as well, but it is trying to break this upper trend line. Again, that's always consider the time frame that you're using the metric in. Like if I draw a trend line on the 3-minute, then I want to see a 3-minute bar break it. If it's on the daily, sort of the same thing. I do believe, we have another super chat here. Frederick Von Yummy Pants. Okay. Thank you. Right. I had to double take for that one. Mining companies start reporting next week. Here's the schedule for some of them if that's your jam. We got Helica on 17th, and then on the 18th, CD, don't know them, Pan American Silver there, and we AGI, and we have AG on the 19th. That should be wild. We've already seen the volatility in the metals. Now all of a sudden, and remember, sometimes you'll have the miners be this lagging move in either direction. So that with the volatility on the pullback in, you're probably going to have some of these companies that have really impressive prints, despite the fact that it looks like we've given a lot back. So there's important earnings to go through. We always talk here in terms of big tech earnings and things that will move the Nasdaq. But if you're just looking straight up trades, all of those names are going to be tradable because the volatility is already heightened on a bunch of them. I just noticed that we must have gotten into VWAP. I just had my order resting on the volume weighted average price on pins. It's been one of those kind of days. It's like for every win in IBIT, there's a loss in Intel. For every win, for the clean one in pins, there's a choppy mess there in Rivian. So it's kind of one of those flat kind of mornings. And even the market couldn't even sustain that move back up to the high that we just saw. Adara?
Another very interesting sector board to end the week. Lots of strength in health tech, producer manufacturing, utilities, non-energy minerals, health services, and distribution services. Though we have a lot of weakness in other areas. We've got consumer services to the downside, specifically CM, CSA, and Starbucks. Though once again, Disney up on no discernible catalyst that I could find. Finance pretty weak here with Visa leading the group down 2.5%. Another credit card provider here, MasterCard, also trading lower. Electronic tech, you've got weakness in NVIDIA, Broadcom, and Micron, though other names in the sector, including GE, General Electric, Amphenol, Boeing, Intel, and AMD to the upside. Tech services, once again, Meg 7s are weaker, but the rest of the names in the sector doing relatively well for the most part. CRM nicely to the upside. Oracle, Apple have been recovering ever so slightly from its massive double-digit drop yesterday on earnings, and Palo Alto Networks up 3.5%. So mixed look once again, though areas that are strong tend to be quite strong today. Back to you.
Thank you, Adara. Here's a name that we have not looked at or talked about Well, technically since yesterday, and that's going to be Tesla. And you know what? Probably with good reason. If I'm talking about the market doing nothing, entire afternoon range on Tesla, entire day's range, we have not broken higher, we have not broken lower. That's an absolute chop fest, what you're seeing there for sure. Toby says, talk about my BBAI, bro. Really? That's how it's going to be? Bruh. We can talk about BBAI. Sean knows more about the company, and he's invested in that one. Personally, myself, again, I've never touched them. We've traded it for sure. But one thing you can say with this stock is, ever since it lost, there's very few stocks this price and size that I've seen hold the 200-period trend line as well as it was. And ever since it lost it, I just think it's a short till it's not. The prior support level here has turned into a bit of resistance. This $4 level had consolidation, so for now you got temporary support there. But if it loses that, the big one is, when did it start? Where are the levels where it really started running off the 2? And that was down here at about 50, and that was down here at about 250. Those look like good termination points where it's like you almost don't care, you would just buy it anyways. But it still seems like you lost the 200-period moving average, and it's in a downtrend. And that is what it is. I didn't quite catch that, Andre, in my ear, so you're going to have to repeat that. Probably not telling you what you want to hear in BBAI, but when I see it lose the 200-period like that and trend down, I always feel like it's momentum short until it shows you a different path.
Yeah, I'm watching this Palantir here at the same time. 130 was a bit of a level for me because that came in yesterday. Another one that sold aggressively and then actually caught a bid back into VWAP all the way back into 130s yesterday. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's see if we can catch a bid above that 130. And that 130 does come in here. And you can see even on the initial pullback after this break of opening range highs here at 129.70s, we pull right back into 130, hold for another push all the way up to 132.27s, but pulling right back in 130s once again here on Palantir. So now the question becomes, this was resistance yesterday. This was resistance in the pre-market. This was also a resistance area off of the open, which turned into a bit of support. We can see that tight consolidation here on a 3-minute chart where we hold that 130. So now I'm asking the question, will this continue to show more of the same here on this pullback into 130 on Palantir? Now, Palantir has come a long way. And we talked about this earlier on last year as well. What an aggressive and crazy move on Palantir when you look at the higher time frame, and talk about a beautiful backside, because this thing is finally breaking structure. This thing finally caught a little bit of a sell here. We're pulling back pretty decently and on increasing volume relative to what we were doing just a couple months ago here in December. So you can see here 200s, failure to follow through, 207s all the way up to 207 halves, comes all the way back into 150s, 146s, pops right back up into 200, another failure to follow through, a break of trend as well. If you draw some of your anchors, look at that. I have a lot of lines on here. Some of these lines that go straight up and down, those are from intradays that I still haven't taken off. That's my fault. But you can see the ones that do come in on the higher time frame. We've broken trend, especially on this one here, off of this breakout off of 126 that happened May of 2025. You can see that April bid as well that brought us all the way from sub 100, all the way down from 67s to that 200, finally breaking down and taking a stair step down. All of these anchors potentially to some earnings and some events or whatever. Again, I forget what some of these anchors are pinned to, but all I know is in my playbook they were significant events, and if I go back into my notes, I'm sure I can find out what the reasoning for some of these were. But you can see just stair step down, 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 breaks this level right here, right back, slamming back down into some prior significant levels as well, all the way down here in the 120s. So Palantir, I'm asking the same question. Is this going to have a tumble all the way back down into some of these prior support and resistance levels? 120s is what I'm looking at, and maybe even 65s if we can really get going. But Palantir, what a crazy run, man. This one all the way from, you can see this, talk about an episodic pivot here on this push from earnings in November of 2024, holding that $60 level, consolidating and trending up like crazy. and I'm looking for a potential symmetrical move here to the downside. But that selling, who knows where it'll stop. But this chart definitely reminds me of that of ANF. ANF had a similar kind of a bid, maybe not as aggressive of an initial move on the breakout, but that trend was quite nice. And look at what happens when that structure finally gives it up. We pull back into some interesting levels. Sure, we don't come all the way back down into where we started the move, but we kind of have our 50% pullback roughly, maybe even more, and then start to chop around here as maybe potentially price starts to accept over the past year or so here on ANF. There was another stock as well that kind of reminded me of this.
The market's starting to give it up a little bit here.
Yeah?
Yeah, the Nasdaq, just quickly for everybody, the Nasdaq is topping. We didn't get to 25K. We just got to 249.5 and turned right around right quick. Just one quick note. I put it in the chat here, and I want to, into the chat, trend break on Intel. So it finally broke VWAP trend, and I'm looking for it to get back into the volume weighted average price. Same setup as Pinterest, effectively. But if you're not in the chat, jump in here. Water is nice and warm, although the market is looking awfully back into the red again. The Nasdaq is red. But check this out. There's a link at the top, which Fabian just showed to me, because, what TikTok, baby. Nice. And I know there's nobody that's going to be more excited about this than Sharif. Why? Because Sharif loves him some TikTok. He loves him some Instagram. And I know Ramin will be excited about it as well. But yeah, looking fantastic. Now you got the Fed, because I'm showing it, so it's just going absolutely crazy in here. So it's a pinned link into the chat. Everyone can check it out. We are now there. We're just trying to add more. I think we're also on X as well, everybody. The water is nice and warm. But shout out to these boys for getting us back on track on TikTok. Link at the top. We only have about 10 minutes to go till we get to Sharif and Joe on the midday. But I was just informed of this in the chat. Someone said, check out the wick on Coinbase. So this was real. Coinbase was in the midst of a pullback. Whoa. Did this liquidity kind of a dump from 163 all the way down into 159. So about a $3 pullback. Is that real? And then snapped right back up. It's on my, I haven't looked at e-signal, but you should probably, well, it's a good idea. You always confirm it on another chart.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the same thing. Someone said they saw check it out. I see the same thing on my chart. I wasn't trading Coinbase at the time. And the best way to know whether it's real is if you have a secondary source. Like I could pull this up. We can literally do this together. Is I could just pull up e-signal because I happen to have something else, and I can just go Coinbase, and I'll go to a 3-minute chart. So it's exactly what I was looking at before, and we'll see if I see the same. Yeah, I see the same wick there on e-signal. So it looks like that was real. Now it could be a lot of things. Someone could have fat fingered and it got snapped back up. It could have been somebody, like a big order got stopped out and it was just too much size and pushed it down, and it was like a legitimate order. Either way, when it snaps back up, it's usually pretty bullish, but with the way the market's coming back in, I don't know if it'll be able to sustain. We'll see. So as I said, the only new position for myself was, again, another trend break. These have been what worked the best recently for me. So there's VWAP, there's the trend up. There was a small break in here that we tried. That didn't work out, obviously, and now we're looking for the push back into the volume-weighted average price. I am Edward says, goodbye, Netflix. Not again, Netflix. Yeah, you know what, Netflix, you're back at the lows.
Ranging.
I don't know what to tell you about Netflix other than...
Is it at 75 yet?
Well, this is sort of the... Yeah, it's at 76 right now.
Thank you.
But I'm not even sure that that's not the bottom we're looking for on Netflix. I think we're looking at the weekly chart for Netflix. You've already lost those mid-80s. I mean, the weekly chart's telling you the 200 period's at 65. There's no significant level till you get to like the 70 area in here.
Another beautiful swing short.
But like, look at the chart. Like, when it lost the 50 period on the weekly here, right? Lose the 50 period. The next week it tries to regain it. Then it wicks it. We haven't had a green week since. Everyone's always looking for the bid. Well, how about it at least puts in a green week, and then you can start talking about a bid. Let's go to Adara because it's Money Talks.
Just a fun fact that I just saw here on X, unrelated to money, but still interesting. Amazon apparently on track for its longest losing streak since 2006. Apparently 9 days in a row to the downside, erasing 18%. So interesting look there for AMZN. I just saw that right now, and maybe just an interesting thing to note. Let's talk about this US dollar, which is continuing to kind of try to do a little bit of an uptrend off of these lows on the daily chart. That most recent low here, or significant low, being January 27th of 2026. And again, this drop kind of came as we had all of these concerns over whether or not the US government would be helping interfere with the Japanese yen. And the day after that, we had denials of that, and then the market, or the DXY rather, comes back up a little bit. So again, this DXY is still trying to rebound a little bit here. I want to talk about the CPI print. You can find this visual on XTTV Research, including the actual prints for all of these, and then also their estimate and the prior print. So with that in mind, let's get into this, because there's a very clear trend versus the core, or with the core versus the non-core. So core, we actually have exactly in line with estimates here. Core CPI month over month for January, totally flat, 0.3% versus the estimate of 0.3%, and the prior 0.3%. CPI year over year actually below the prior print of 2.7%, but in line with estimates of 2.5%. Let's talk, yes, we kind of got over the CPI data here. Next week, I believe we actually get PCE, which is often touted as the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, so that will be the thing to watch. We know certain Feds, including Schmid, saying that they don't really see any need to cut rates until we get to 2% inflation. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this goes down here. But again, CPI data, not a bad look for the day. And if you want to see this visual, look at it again. XTTV Research is your place to go. But you don't have to go anywhere for the rest of this session. We're going to send you back over here to Neil and Obi.
Thank you very much, Anera. Yeah, the market's just chopping in this range right now. Coinbase with a little bit of a pullback there, watching that one. We were just having a conversation about is that wick real or not. Sometimes I was saying that I don't have all the gate data on some of my charts, so it could very much be real. At the same time, this just DraftKings is holding VWAP pretty well here. I've been kind of chopping away at it, looking for a potential continuation. But if it's going to go sideways, I'm probably going to leave it alone soon enough. What were some of the better trades this morning? Let's take a look at some of them. I'm just going to go straight up. Coinbase. Apple. Yes, Coinbase is definitely on there, but Apple got kind of rocked back through some of these levels here. That pop off of CPI definitely got sold into. We were looking at that 262 to 260 range from prior day. Guess what? We did that whole range with some aggressive selling right off of the open. That 260 didn't quite come in off of the open as we bid right back up and into and through VWAP, but we are looking relatively weak here. And continuing to sell off of VWAP. So the question becomes, is it going to do it later? Does it need more time? Let's just go to a higher time frame. Whenever I'm asking that, I'm just going to go to a higher time frame and see how some of the I guess higher time frame participants, how they are seeing this market and this chart. So 30-minute, you can see here maybe a little bit of a leg consolidation leg, potentially a 3-bar potentially happening here on a 30-minute with a muted green candle, which can barely retrace about 50% of this down move. I'm watching that as well and holding resistance at prior day's support levels as well as pre-market levels. So 260 maybe potentially coming in later on in the day. I have no idea. We could just chop around as well. This could very well be leg all day consolidation and then opening on Monday. No, Monday's a holiday. Tuesday. We could get that continuation as well. That's one of the things that I'm potentially thinking about as of right now. Coinbase, as Neil mentioned, definitely one of the better opportunities off of the open there. Earnings day one, pre-market high, breakout coming in here at 155. That confluences with prior day's pre-market action, as well as Wednesday's end-of-day close action, as well as some of those bounces as well. So if you're looking at any sort of a 150 to 155 level here on Coinbase, that was quite nice. And even the reversion from here, if you go down to a shorter time frame and you just look at, okay, pre-market, we held those after hours highs. We come down into some of those levels at 147, and then you can see here the bid catches right back on, reversion happening right there, pre-market high breakout, as well as opening range high breakout, as well as opening back through open as well. So a few different executions that you can take on this one on Coinbase. And here's something that I'm kind of, reading about and hearing from some of these other traders as well, it's just like anyone can have a good idea on a stock. It's execution that will always make the difference. How are you executing? How are you managing your risk? And over time, that is what makes the difference.
That's entirely true. Like, what direction a stock is going to go to is only part of the story. Because, and the other side of it too is like, if you have, even if you're right on direction, but your execution plan doesn't have you take enough profit or has you lose too much when you're wrong, then it just doesn't matter whether you can find it. That's why I like to try to find things which, it's not that it's binary, but when you get an execution plan, there's not a lot of wiggle room. Like, and that's why I've always liked trend lines. I started out 20 years ago. It was one of the first things I did. Admittedly, and I've said this before, when I first started out, I had way too many trend lines. Like, my chart would be in a complete another mess with trend lines. Now I try to keep it with what am I looking at right now for my next execution. So when I observe clearly an upward trend like this, I know I'm getting in when it confirms, there's a confirmation candle, there's my entry area. At worst, like 47, like low 20s in there, but at best I want to be in the high 20s to 30s, and then initially I might give it the wider stop to the 50. If I see it hold immediate support at 47, like it is right here, big key level at the $47 level, been a big one for a couple of days, and when I see it hold this range, I might tighten up the stop, which I just did, to this lower bar high. Because I feel like if it takes this out of this 1% range, then it'll probably head to the high anyway. So tighten the stop up. I want to bid into 47. I want to bid into the volume weighted average price. And I already have the risk plan. And then when you're executing that way, I already know what I'm doing before I've entered the trade. And so everything else is just sort of just the mechanics of it for sure. So we'll see what happens with the market as we are still, and this is the rub. We're pretty much in the same range we were in the first 10 minutes of the day. Like, there was one break down, one break up, but most of the time we've been sitting in this same half-point range in both the Nasdaq and the New York. It's a slightward uptrend. So you have to respect that, but it is still a very, very tight range for the market. But that's why you were pointing out something like Coinbase.
Right.
Coinbase is doing something distinctly different. Bitcoin is doing something distinctly different as well. Like, this is where the movement happens to be. The absolute irony is the cleanest trade I have is going to be a short in the stock or the thing that's probably the strongest. But again, broke trend, target, get the heck out of Dodge. With only less than 1 minute to go, I just realized I have the menu here.
Okay.
But like, this is, okay, so it's a Mexican flag today on the menu.
All right.
For lunch, which makes it pretty obvious what we have, because there's only a couple of things it could be, but it's not the one that I would have guessed. It's actually beef chili. So I have a sneaky suspicion, here's my suspicion, that yes, we're gonna have chili, great, but it's not gonna be spiced the way that I would expect it, considering the fact that it's Mexican. That said, we've got diced tomatoes, sour cream, green onions, shredded cheese, and cilantro to go with it. So if you hate on that, then you don't like tasty food. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I expect it to be absolutely delicious. As long as they don't make it with tilapia.
People in the chat chiming in saying tilapia tacos.
I'm
glad I missed that day. I wasn't in that.
We never had tilapia tacos. We've had tilapia. Tilapia tacos they've never done. I just want to get that out. No, you could have fish tacos, but I don't think we've had tilapia as the fish. Maybe they snuck that in one time and I didn't even notice, which kudos to them. Like, if you make that taste good, then you're doing it. The
tacos are pretty good.
So we will be back at 2 o'clock, but I have good news for you.
Yes.
You get to slide over to our left. We got the professor locked and loaded. He's excited for that chili, I can already hear. Joey Options is there. Joe seems to hate all the food that we have. He doesn't like cookies. He doesn't like apple pie. Doesn't like fried chicken. Doesn't like, I don't know. He doesn't like grandma's mac and cheese. I'm just making stuff up at this point. Hopefully he does like the chili. I know he likes good trades. I know he likes Bitcoin, which is up today, so he's got to have a smile on his face. We'll be back at 2, and we'll see you then. But on to the midday.